Chapter 5298. Yi Qing Luo had this kind of magical power. It was as if everything was under her control. As expected, the next moment, a young lady's clear voice drifted into his ears. If Lord Demonic, Lord knows his place, I naturally will not forget. She paused as her fair hand hooked onto the man's arm. Pulling him, she walked past the demonic enchantress, towards the outside of the hall. When they passed by the demonic enchantress, the young lady slightly suppressed her voice as she glanced sideways, her pink lips curled slightly. Let me give Lord Demonic, Lord, a piece of advice. Don't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. She seemed to be smiling, but that low, charming voice, when it entered the demonic enchantress's ears, it made the demonic enchantress's hair stand on end. The young lady's words had a double meaning. It was a warning to the demonic enchantress to know its place and cooperate with her, and also a warning to the demonic enchantress. Don't have any thoughts towards her man. Leaving the palace, Dmo Xian drew the little girl into his arms as he whispered softly, Is Lil Luo jealous? Yi Qing Luo hooked the man's slender fingers as she circled it in her palm. Not jealous. After all, the man I chose is so outstanding, so it's normal for other women to covet you. She didn't mind other women liking Dmo Xian. She couldn't control a person's heart if they liked him. Furthermore, her man was indeed outstanding. But she raised her head slightly as she met the man's eyes, which were as deep as ink, projecting only her silhouette. Her pink lips curled slightly as she smiled. If because I like you, I taint you. I can't take it. That absolutely stunning face, the smile on the corners of her lips, slowly turned bright and flamboyant, like a coquettish mandala gradually blooming. That kind of intoxicating, captivating one's soul. After all, you belong to me. Her Xian, her own Xian. She could like him, but to cross the boundary, she couldn't. Dmo Xian's peerless face revealed an indulgent and tender smile. He nodded as his eyes were clear. Yes, I'm yours. Yi Qing Luo prodded his face satisfactorily. Good boy. The two of them hadn't been like this for a long time, spending time alone. The two of them stuck together and talked for a while. Yi Qing Luo then brought up the main topic. That's right, Xian. Haven't you been trying to find out where Huang Weio is these few days? Is there any news? There's news, but Dmo Xian gazed at the young lady's face as he replied calmly, There was an accident. Do you want to know? Accident? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. You still have an accident? Could it be that he has already left the infernal domain? If Huang Weio really escaped from the demon domain, if Baisu left with the Feng family, Feng Shi and Linglong, it would be dangerous. Dmo Xian shook his head. I've sent people from the Imperial Palace to guard the various exits of the Devil's Domain and even set up an array. No matter how many ancient forbidden spells Huang Weio knows, trying to undo the array I've set up would definitely attract my attention. Huang Weio must still be in the demon domain. After listening to Dmo Xian's words, Yi Qing Luo was relieved. Then what is the accident you mentioned? The accident is... Dmo Xian lowered his head slightly as he leaned close to her ear. Other than the Devil Extermination Mountain, the second largest extreme Yin ground in the demon domain, Mount Wurin, is Huang Weio's second resting place. The people from the Imperial Palace have detected Huang Weio's presence in Mount Wurin. Other than that, there's also... Dmo Xian paused for a moment before spitting out a name. Zhu Wuxan. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned. Zhu Wuxan? He's also in Mount Wurin? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5299. Ever since they came out of the divine Emperor's seal, the people of the illusion race took Zhu Wuxin away. And at that time, apart from being drugged by her, Zhu Wuxin seemed to have suffered quite a serious injury. Why did he come to uninhabited mountain instead of recuperating? The young lady's expression fell into D.M.O. Xian's eyes. D.M.O. Xian's eyes narrowed as he pinched her nose, and his tone seemed to be displeased. Lil Luo seems to trust Zhu Wuxen quite a lot. Huang Wuyo was hiding in the uninhabited mountain. Uninhabited mountain detected Zhu Wuxin's aura again. Logically speaking, any normal person would guess that Huang Wuyo and Zhu Wuxin were in cahoots. But Yi Qing Luo totally didn't think in this direction. It was enough to show how much trust Yi Qing Luo had towards Zhu Wuxen. Yi Qing Luo choked on her words. Her little hand grabbed D.M.O. Xian's hand and moved his hand away from her nose. You're spilling the vinegar jar again. D.M.O. Xian's face didn't reveal a single bit of embarrassment. Instead, he spoke in a righteous manner. Who doesn't know about Zhu Wuxen's feelings towards you? Why can't I be jealous? Yi Qing Luo burst out laughing with a buffed. She pouted coquettishly as she stared at D.M.O. Xian and replied snappily, Huang Wuyo is the murderer who exterminated the Illusory clan. As the young lord of the Illusory clan, Zhu Wuxen is the only hope of the Illusory clan. He must be crazy to acknowledge the enemy as his father and collaborate with Huang Wuyo again. Furthermore, Zhu Wuxin was too stubborn. His obsession with her. They would also not allow him and Huang Wuyo to work together again, because Huang Wuyo's motive was obvious. Huang Wuyo was determined to take Yi Qing Luo's life and dig out her profound heart jade, using her fresh blood to irrigate himself. Therefore, this was the reason why Zhu Wuxin appeared on the uninhabited mountain. Perhaps there was only one. Yi Qing Luo's expression turned slightly grave as she spoke in a deep voice. Now, we have to rush over to Mount Wuren. Zhu Wuxin was probably doing this for her and the illusion race. He would first head to the uninhabited mountain to look for the whereabouts of Huang Wuyo. The people of the demon realm were in a state of panic. All the major forces were wary of each other. However, they all had the same goal. That was Devil Domain's Devil Hall, Yi Qing Luo's group's whereabouts. For the major forces, whether it was the tomb of the former divine emperor or the place where revered Carefree was sealed, that was related to Yi Qing Luo. Moreover, Yi Qing Luo was able to become the current divine phoenix. It was definitely not that easy to inherit the position of the divine phoenix. There must be some secret behind this. Even if they couldn't defeat Yi Qing Luo, they couldn't defeat the Overlord. At the very least, finding out Yi Qing Luo's secret would more or less be able to take advantage of her secretly, especially now that Yi Qing Luo and the others were still in the Devil region. This also meant that there were definitely other secrets hidden in the infernal domain. That was what many forces were thinking. Because of this, more and more people paid attention to the demonic hall. But this was because the demon hall was being watched by countless spies. Yi Qing Luo's group still silently disappeared from the Devil Hall. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo and the rest had already started on their journey towards the Mountain of No Man. The demonic palace was not far from the desolate mountain. Yi Qing Luo led the group of brothers, along with the 5 ghosts and the rest, all the way forward. After walking for about a day, they had already reached the foot of the Mountain of No Man. Looking at the Mountain of No Man, it was a stretch of undulating mountain range. Withered yellow trees without any signs of life were scattered all over the place. Wisps of gloomy cold air floated in the sky, bringing along a strong malicious intent. This made this Mountain of No Man added a tinge of treachery. 7th Miss, who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. 7th Miss, who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5300. Yi Qing Luo had just gotten close to it when she felt the icy cold viper, causing her brows to crease tightly. The atmosphere here. It wasn't any lesser than Devil Destruction Mountain's Inchi and I. It was able to cause discomfort to humans. It was indeed a place that Huang Weio would choose. The yin qi in this place was the best healing medicine for Huang Weio. The man by her side clasped their fingers together tightly. His gentle and concerned gaze fell on her. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and met his gaze as she smiled and shook her head, indicating that she was fine. Following that, she looked at Yan Xiaoyi and the rest behind her as she instructed. Everyone be careful. The yin qi here is very heavy, and it is harmful to the body. If you breathe it in for a long period of time, it will affect your bodies. If you are not feeling well, don't force yourself. Just stay here and be our support. Her words were heard. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest frowned as they were about to retort. Yi Qing Luo interrupted their words. You want to stay by my side because you want to help me to do something for me. But under these prerequisites, the most important thing is to protect yourselves. If you are at the foot of the mountain, you will feel a strong discomfort towards the yin qi here. Then, if you enter the inner part of the mountain, I'm afraid you will feel even more uncomfortable. Huang Weio had always liked to make use of people's hearts, toying with them. Once something happens to you, he might possibly make use of you to clamp down on me and restrain me. By then, wouldn't it be even more troublesome? The young lady's question made everyone's expression congealed slightly. In the end, they left 5 of them at the foot of the mountain, ready to receive them any time. As for the remaining people who entered the mountain, Ghost Doctor gave each of them 2 medicinal pills, although it wasn't able to defend against the strong yin qi, but it would at least make everyone's body slightly more comfortable. The moment Yi Qing Luo stepped into the mountain, she sensed that something was amiss. Stepping into the mountain, everything in front of her eyes instantly changed from the barren mountain and withered trees to a densely packed forest. The most frightening thing about this densely packed area was that this huge forest was not an ordinary green color, but as though it was surrounded by a thick black fog. Black tree branches, black leaves. It exuded an eerie aura. The trees were baring their fangs and brandishing their sharp branches. The leaves were so sharp that they looked like sharp fangs. It was like a living creature. In the air, apart from the thick smell of decay and dampness, there was also a thick, nauseating smell of blood. When the wind blew, it became even denser, filling their nostrils. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as her fingertips speedily opened up her glower flame fan, using a protective stance to protect the group of people behind her. Spatial enchantment! Where they were now, it could be said to be the uninhabited mountain, but it could also be said to be another space within the uninhabited mountain. And this was the space that the person who had set up the spatial enchantment wanted them to see. Other than Huang Weio, no one else could possess such a sinister, secret technique. It seemed that she did not need to search for Huang Weio's whereabouts. He could be sure now. Huang Weio was in the uninhabited mountain. In a short span of 3 days, Huang Weio recovered rather quickly. Not only did he manage to occupy Empyrean Mountain, he even had the energy to set up such a complicated spatial formation around the enormous Empyrean Mountain, from the smell of blood in the air. In these 3 days, Huang Weio had absorbed quite a lot of resignation. Yo-ho, you're indeed that woman Feng Ji's daughter. You're still very vigilant, trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5301. A sinister voice was heard faintly from the dense forest. That laughter was filled with a thick sense of sarcasm. This voice suddenly rang in the midst of the group of vigilant and solemn atmosphere. Instantly it attracted everyone's attention as they all looked over in unison. In the dense black forest, a tall figure was faintly discernible as it approached from afar. Into everyone's eyes, yin qi lingered around. That man dressed in a black long robe seemed to be materialized from the black fog. When Yi Qing Luo saw that man's face clearly, her narrow eyes squinted slightly. Long out, Yin. What are you doing here? Why was he here? Seeing Long Outyen, that murderous and bloody aura, under the sky full of Yin-Chi, revealed a hint of bloodthirsty intent. Instantly, it made the world group's faces revealed vigilance as they speedily displayed a defensive stance, blocking in front of Yi-Ching Luo, whereas Ghost Doctor and the other four frowned slightly as their brows creased tightly as they stared at Long Outyen, sizing him up. The expression on their faces was complicated and vigilant. This man's aura was strangely familiar. Seeing that Yi-Ching Luo directly called out his name, they probably knew each other. Long Outyen's sinister and bloodthirsty eyes sized up the world group's people with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Seeing their vigilant looks, as though they were facing a great enemy, his lips couldn't help but curled into a sneer of ridicule. Little thing, you just brought these few pieces of trash and stepped onto the desolate mountain. Are you thinking too highly of yourself? Or are you belittling that monster inside? Yi-Ching Luo's expression instantly sunk. Long Outyen, you can ridicule me however you want, but don't belittle my brother. Long Outyen sneered as he opened up his arms and waved it lazily. All right, this seat won't say any more. Yi-Ching Luo's brows creased even tighter. This Long Outyen wasn't someone who was so easily obedient. To compromise so quickly wasn't like his style. Long Outyen's cold gaze squinted at Yi-Ching Luo's expression as he sneered. Little thing, don't use this kind of expression to look at this seat. This seat is here. It's merely because I'm bored. This seat has just awoken and there's no place for me to go, so I can only follow you. His tone was filled with helplessness, as though following Yi-Ching Luo was her greatest honor. Yi-Ching Luo's vision went past him and looked towards the direction where he had just walked out from. How did you know that I would come to Mount Wurin? That was the direction of the inner part of the mountain. In other words, Long Outyen had entered the uninhabited mountain early in the morning. Long Aotian looked at Yi-Ching Luo as though he was looking at an idiot. You've been staying in the Devil region. Isn't it because you haven't settled that monster inside? That monster is in the uninhabited mountain. How could you not come? Yi-Ching Luo. Fine, I know you're smart. I know you're amazing. What did he mean by that smug and boastful tone? Yi-Ching Luo looked at the world group beside her as she waved her hand. No matter. Continue walking into the mountain. Although the world group had retracted their defensive stance, their gazes towards Long Outyen were still filled with vigilance. After all, this person didn't look like a good person at all. Yi-Ching Luo left. Long Outyen followed behind him, walking leisurely as if he was on an outing. They walked for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly asked, When did you come in? Earlier than you. By a few hours. Long Outyen replied. Yi-Ching Luo replied, When you entered Mount Wurin, was there already a spatial enchantment set up? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5302. Long Outyen curled his lips into a sinister smile. What's in it for me to tell you? Yi-Ching Luo was expressionless, say it if you like. After saying that, she turned her head and didn't look at him anymore. Yi-Ching Luo ignored him. Long Outyen felt even worse. Hey, hey, hey! Long Aotian hastened his footsteps as he walked side by side with Yi-Ching Luo. No matter what, this seat is the famous Lord Demon Dragon from 10,000 years ago. What's wrong with giving some benefits to ask this seat some questions? Was that too much to ask? If it was 10,000 years ago, just being able to speak to him was already a blessing accumulated in one's previous life. Yi-Ching Luo didn't even give him a look. Long Outyen couldn't hold it in any more. Fine, 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 I'll tell you. When I arrived, the Immortal Mountain had already been covered by that monster's energy. I think that monster had already guessed that you would come here. He paused and his tone suddenly became gloating. That monster knows that you're coming, but it has no intention of escaping. It's ready to invite you into its trap. And you just happened to deliver yourself to me. An evil smile flashed across Long Out Yen's bloodthirsty and cold eyes. You guys have to be careful. His drawn-out tone added some haze to the strange atmosphere. This made the world group's heart sink even further. Yen Xiao pursed her lips and glared at Long Out Yen. She wanted to scold him. Since he had chosen to follow their team, they didn't expect him to help, but he shouldn't make sarcastic remarks from the side either. However, Qiao Jin pressed down on her arm and shook his head gently at her. That person is not simple. Qiao Jin lowered his voice. A person from 10,000 years ago. I'm afraid he's someone who can be mentioned in the same breath as the previous Emperor of Gods, Huang Wuyo. If Long Out Yen were to be angered at this moment, on the contrary, it would only cause more trouble. There's a very strange aura on him, said the blue-clothed youth who was being supported by Tong Ziqing at the back of the crowd in a low voice. Under the contrast of the dense yin qi, Long Yunjan's cold face appeared somewhat pale. That pair of azure blue eyes was faintly suffused with a somewhat complicated flowing light. The man called Long Out Yen. There was a smell of kindred to him. However, there was something different. It made him feel like he wanted to take the initiative to get close to her, but at the same time he was a little afraid. This was the first time Long Yunjan had such a feeling. Perhaps their voices had caught Long Out Yen's attention. Or perhaps it was the look in his eyes that made Long Out Yen notice it. Long Out Yen's eyes, which seemed to have been washed by ice and were filled with bloodlust, suddenly met Long Out Yen's gaze. Long Yunjan instantly felt a chill rise from the bottom of his feet to his brain. His face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled slightly as he was not used to it. What's wrong? Tong Ziqing's eyes were filled with concern. Are you feeling unwell after the yin qi entered your body? Long Yunjan shook his head, and when he looked at Long Out Yen again, that person had already moved his gaze away. However, the pressure on his body did not dissipate because of this. Lord Demon Dragon. The girl's clear voice sounded a bit displeased as she warned. If you don't know your place, then don't follow me. That Lord Demon Dragon, these 4 words, was obviously filled with ridicule. Long Out Yen retracted his aura as he shrugged his shoulders. This isn't seeing a little companion. This seat is too tall. Happy your head. Yi Qing Luo glanced at him coldly. Don't have any ideas on my people. I don't have the time to guard against Huang Wuyo and at the same time guard against you. 7th young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. 7th young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5303. Long Out Yen's sinister eyes revealed a sinister smile that didn't seem like a smile. Even if he was smiling, it also made one feel horrified. Little thing, I am here specially to help you. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Why should I believe you? Towards Long Out Yen, she could only confirm that this person had no ill intentions. But it was not to the extent of trusting him. After all, this person was hard to control and couldn't be understood. Long Out Yen clicked his tongue. You're making me sad by saying that. Immediately after, he changed the topic. I didn't expect. You actually have such a little fellow by your side. I have underestimated you. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she warned in a low voice. You are bored and want to mess around. You can mess around with Huang Wuyo, but don't touch my people. Long Out Yen snorted lightly as the sinister smile on his lips deepened. He is not your little lover. Why are you so nervous? Yi Qing Luo and the rest walked for a long time. Other than the strange plants that filled the sky, there were no other living creatures. And after walking for a long time, they didn't seem to have reached the end. It was as if they were going around in circles. But Yi Qing Luo specially left a mark as a sign. But it didn't return to the place where she left the mark. That meant It wasn't like ghosts hitting the wall. The black plants that filled the sky were like ferocious beasts. Visually, it gave one a feeling that there was no difference. No matter how they walked, it was like walking back and forth on the same spot. And the further they went, the thicker the yin qi in the air, as if it was going to penetrate their skin and pour into their bodies. If this went on, they still hadn't seen Huang Wuyo. This group of people were probably going to be eroded by the yin qi in the mountains. Huang Wuyo's body couldn't possibly recover in such a short period of time. Otherwise, he would have gone down the mountain to stir up trouble. He spent so much effort to set up this spatial enchantment, other than blocking her from finding him and delaying time. There must be other reasons. Just as Yi Qing Luo was deep in thought, suddenly there was a rustling sound in the dense fog lingering in the lush forest. A black shadow could be seen, faintly. Everyone instantly focused as they looked ahead, vigilantly. After several breaths of silence, the sha-sha-sha sound continued but did not approach. That voice, is it luring us over? Yan Xiaoyi frowned slightly as she asked Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo nodded. This means that Huang Wuyo can no longer hold himself back. Huang Wuyo's psychological warfare was pretty good. First, he used the dense yin qi to create an oppressive pressure on them. The terrifying black plants baring their fangs and brandishing their claws increased the pressure in their hearts. Then it was aimless. It seemed like he was going around in circles, but it wasn't. At this moment, if there was any movement, those who had already been suppressed by the environment and were on the verge of erupting would definitely rush in the direction of the commotion to investigate. Danger lurked in every corner of this place. If he acted rashly, he would definitely fall into the trap. Yi Qing Luo looked around. Seniors, 5 ghosts. I'll have to trouble you to help me take care of my group of brothers. Ah Xian and I will go over to take a look. Everyone wanted to stop him. But when they saw the man standing beside Yi Qing Luo, they didn't open their mouths. If the Overlord was around, he would definitely protect Yi Qing Luo well. They couldn't possibly be so passive, waiting for Huang Wuyo to take the initiative to attack. By then, it would only make them more passive. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5304. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian exchanged glances as they walked towards the direction of the sound. They had just taken a few steps. A black figure was even faster than them as he walked in front. Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted as she looked at that tall back view which cast an elongated shadow under the thick fog, giving off an indescribable charm. She frowned. Lord Demon Dragon, why are you following me? When she shouted out the words Lord Demon Dragon, no matter how one heard it, it made one feel especially ridiculed. Long Outyen was no exception. He also frowned as his sinister eyes gazed at Yi Qing Luo with a smile which didn't look like a smile as he replied naturally, This seat is of course following you to see if there's anything fun. Yi Qing Luo. In this kind of vicious place, where a single word of disagreement could trigger a world-class war, probably only Long Outyen would be so heartless to treat this place as a place to play. Yi Qing Luo took a look at Long Outyen and looked at the group of brothers who were being protected by the 5 ghosts. After thinking for a moment, she decided to let Long Outyen follow her. At least this unstable factor was following her, and there was still Dmo Xian who could control him. If she left Long Outyen behind, who knew if Long Outyen would suddenly act up and take action against the group of brothers? Hence, Yi Qing Luo didn't open her mouth to stop him. Yi Qing Luo's little hand held onto Dmo Xian's arm as the both of them walked forward carefully, whereas Long Outyen swaggered as though he was on a field trip as he strode forward without any worries. Yi Qing Luo didn't stop him. With such a little white rat to scout the way ahead, she couldn't ask for more. As expected, the instant the 3 of them merged into the dense black forest, a black shadow flashed past, and the surrounding plants, which were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, were swiftly charging towards them. Those sharp branches and thorny leaves were as though they had opened their bloody mouths in an attempt to swallow the three of them. Long Outyen, who was walking right in front, was directly swept into the sky full of plants. Dmo Xian's reaction was swift. The instant Long Outyen fell into the trap, the purple cloud's sleeve suddenly waved. A majestic, profound ray blocked in front of him, and Yiqing Luo. Bam! There was a violent explosion. The plant, bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws, collided with the black light. Seeing that it was unable to devour the two of them, more and more plants appeared around them, rushing towards the two of them. Densely packed, it directly surrounded Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, separated by a profound barrier as they were wrapped together. Even though she was protected in Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo could hear the horrifying plants around her and the sound of them twisting around her. Yiqing Luo could vaguely see that Long Ao Tian seemed to be sucked into the plant's huge mouth, and she could also see Long Ao Tian's struggling movements, which made those plants seem as though they were swallowing. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but have goosebumps. She rubbed her arms and said, "There really is something wrong with these plants." These plants all had mysterious yin qi gathered on them. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like a proper plant. She did think of man-eating plants. Unexpectedly, these plants were really man-eating plants. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly, as her vision speedily surveyed the surroundings. There had to be a way to control or mutate plants. It can control so many plants. The source was definitely not small, but with her and Dmo Xian as the epicenter, the surroundings were already covered with layers and layers of thick black plants, which completely blocked Yiqing Luo's vision. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5305. Yiqing Luo could only use her perception to sense the surroundings to see if there was any strange source. After she sensed it, Yiqing Luo was a little surprised. She wondered how many cultivators' lives had Huang Wuyo sacrificed and how much of their profound energy had he absorbed. Within 100 miles radius, as long as it was within her perception range, it was all covered by Huang Wuyo's profound yin qi. Wasn't he trying to break the God Emperor's seal and escape? According to her deduction, Huang Wuyo's current condition was absolutely not any better. Previously, Huang Wuyo wanted to use his full strength to break the seal, so he waited and waited. Her appearance had ruined Huang Wuyo's plans. This led to Huang Wuyo breaking the seal forcefully. The current Huang Wuyo had at least preserved 60% of his strength, which was already considered very good. Even if Huang Wuyo had used a forbidden technique to absorb other people's profound energy as nourishment, it was also impossible to create such a huge spatial enchantment and to be able to control so many plants. Just as Yiqing Luo was pondering deeply, suddenly a weak energy, almost undetectable, jumped slightly under her perception. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes and looked straight in that direction, separated by a dense cluster of spiraling plants. Her vision seemed to have penetrated through the plants. Dmo Xian looked at her. Found something? Yiqing Luo nodded. Is there any way to push these strange plants away? Dmo Xian directly used his actions to answer. His sleeves, which looked like flowing purple clouds, fluttered slightly. A formless, profound wave suddenly shook the surroundings of the two of them. A majestic aura rippled in the air, causing people to feel horrified as it slowly spread out. The densely packed plants were instantly dispersed by the shock wave. Yiqing Luo confirmed the position, clenched the glower flame fan, and leaped up. At the same time, Qian spread its wings and soared into the sky, steadily catching Yiqing Luo. The raging flame was burning the sky, full of plants. Ah, Xian, go check on Long Out Yen. I'll observe the situation from afar. Yi Qing Luo said to Dmo Xian. With Qi Yan's fire could purify the world's evil. These plants controlled by the mysterious Yin Qi would be burned by the blazing flames. Yi Qing Luo directly rushed towards the place where she had sensed the weak fluctuation earlier. She sat on the back of Qi Yan, her long and narrow eyes narrowed vigilantly, looking at the situation in front of her from a distance. Under the burning of the flames, the plants turned into ashes bit by bit. It was then revealed under the lush plants, the lines that looked like blood veins intertwined on the ground in an intricate and complicated manner. The strands of blood were faintly discernible under the raging flames. As for the place where Yi Qing Luo detected the fluctuation earlier, the veins of blood intertwined and formed a strange totem. There, 3 bloody bones were inserted horizontally. Above them, one could still see the blood that slowly slid to the ground and spread among the blood wisps. It looked extremely terrifying. It was that blood bone controlling these plants, or rather, the source of the spatial barrier. Yi Qing Luo made Qi Yan lower its altitude and slightly nearer. He could see it clearly, among the blood veins on the ground. Every place where the totem was drawn, there were these 3 blood bones. It could be seen that her guess was right. These blood bones should be the bones of those cultivators whose profound energy had been absorbed by Huang Wuyo. This Huang Wuyo was really vicious and merciless to the extreme, destroying the cultivators' profound energy and profound jade heart. Even the corpses were not spared. Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5306. She knew the source of these strange plants and where they came from. It was much easier to resolve this array. Yi Qing Luo's fingertips moved, and the glower flame fan swept up thousands of huge waves as it surged towards the blood bones on the ground. At the same time, she made the scarlet flame fan spit out raging flames towards the blood bones. But things didn't proceed as Yi Qing Luo had expected. When the profound energy attacked, the blood traces on the blood bones and the viscous liquid were like a huge open mouth, trying its best to absorb the surging profound energy. And when the raging flames got close to the blood bones, numerous plants pounced on it, using the thick black smoke to form the plants which looked like they were brandishing their claws and fangs to block the raging flames. This sky full of plants, no matter how the raging flames burned, there were plants that pounced forward to protect the blood bones. Yi Qing Luo's expression changed slightly. These blood bones, and this sky full of thick black plants. Could it be? Yi Qing Luo thought of a possibility as her expression changed drastically as she swiftly turned her head to look at Dmo Xian. Ah, Xian, this is bad. Huang Wuyo intends to absorb both of our energy. This array, it was not a formation used to trap them at all, but an array that absorbed profound energy. These plants were the medium to absorb the profound energy. Just like when she was at the God Emperor's sealed grounds, she saw those densely packed bloodlines. They were all using this medium to absorb a cultivator's energy. No wonder. Previously, when she was protected in Dmo Xian's arms, she was still able to release her perception through the densely packed plants. Probably at that time, these plants were already absorbing Dmo Xian's profound energy, which was condensed into a protective shield. Yi Qing Luo was just about to tell Dmo Xian about this discovery. She heard Dmo Xian's slightly anxious voice rang. Not good. Lil Luo, or Long Out Yen, is missing. This sentence completely interrupted the words that Yi Qing Luo was about to say. Her eyes narrowed and her heart skipped a beat. Long Out Yen had disappeared, which meant that Long Out Yen wasn't swallowed by those plants. A thought suddenly arose in Yi Qing Luo's mind. Her face turned green and white as she immediately surveyed the surroundings alertly. Her fingertips gripping the glower flame fanned tighter. But the next moment, her body suddenly tensed up. Something cold pressed against her skin. Before he could react, her entire body was directly strangled by a strong force, directly falling from Qi Yan's back, directly falling in the direction of a certain bloodbone. Yi Qing Luo had just moved. An intense pain came from his skin. It was as if something was slowly corroding. She lowered her eyes and looked at the black chain that had suddenly wrapped around her waist. It was as if there was a thick black mist surrounding it. Moreover, Yi Qing Luo also saw a familiar face on the iron chain fatty. The man, who was as cold as cast, curled his thin lips. Between his cold and sinister eyes, there was a hint of coldness. A dim light flickered in his eyes, as if it was covered with frost. Long Aotian, Yi Qing Luo spat out 3 words with a pause. That strong suction force caused her to be unable to utter a single word. Under the pull of the suction force and the iron chain around her waist, her entire body abruptly melted into the bloody bone. Vaguely, Yi Qing Luo seemed to see Dmo Xian swiftly rushing over after splitting the sky full of plants. His hand held onto hers, but the next moment, she lost all her consciousness as she fell into darkness. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please collect it gently. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please collect it gently. Chapter 5307. Yi Qing Luo was awakened by the heat, the burning sensation on her skin, as if she was about to be devoured by the flames, caused her to open her eyes. What greeted her eyes was a huge patch of red. The flames were swaying, giving off coquettish sparks like a moving fire snake, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Ah, Xian! Yi Qing Luo discovered that she was in the middle of a burning fire. What was going on? There was no sound from the surroundings. There was no response from Dmo Xian. In the quiet space, other than the sound of the burning flames, there was only her heavy breathing. Yi Qing Luo wanted to move, thinking of a way to leave this fire. But the moment she moved, she heard the sound of iron chains rubbing against the ground. There was a force on her waist, imprisoning her in place. Yi Qing Luo recalled that before she fell into darkness, she seemed to be bound by an iron chain. That iron chain, if she remembered correctly, it seemed to be the iron chain that bound Long Outyen when she first met him. It was Long Outyen. He schemed against her. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly. A trace of coldness flashed past her eyes. This was not the first time Long Outyen schemed against her. She actually thought that such an arrogant person like Long Outyen would not bother to play any tricks in the dark. She had always thought that Long Outyen might have had a different opinion about Fenggo, her mother. So they were not considered friends, but not enemies either. But Long Outyen schemed against her once again. What was he trying to do? And where was this place? Yi Qing Luo endured the piercing pain from the blazing fire, and that uncomfortable feeling of even breathing was boiling hot as she tried her best to open her eyes, surveying the surroundings. It was best to determine where she was before making any plans. But as far as she could see, other than the burning flames, there was nothing else. Probably her body had gone through several rounds of transformation and consolidation, or probably this kind of flame had other uses. Although the heat was high, but it was not enough to directly burn her into ashes. But, according to the sky full of flames and the discomfort from her body, she had to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, she might really be burnt into ashes. For these flames, of course, he had to use a stronger fire to devour it. Yi Qing Luo concentrated and wanted to summon Qi Yan out. However, when she concentrated her mental power into the pet space, there was only silence. It was completely empty. He couldn't feel anything. Her connection with the pet space had been cut off. Not only that, Yi Qing Luo also discovered that the azure aqua set on her hands and neck, as well as the profound phoenix ring, had all been removed. Under the raging flames, there was only the dim and lusterless azure dew bracelet on her delicate, jade-like arm, appearing extremely lonely. When Yi Qing Luo looked over carefully, she could faintly see. On the surface of the azure dew bracelet, there was a faintly discernible floating black yin qi. This was the mysterious yin qi. Someone had used profound yin energy to seal her azure dew bracelet. Yi Qing Luo probed her divine sense into the azure dew bracelet, and sure enough, it was blocked by something. In other words, she had nothing to rely on now. Stripping her of everything she relied on was to prevent her from escaping from this fiery land. What is Long Out Yin trying to do? No, that's not right. It should be Long Out Yin and Huang Weio. What are they trying to do? There was no azure dew bracelet, no azure dew artifact. Just relying on her alone. She wanted to break free from the iron chain on her waist and escape this fiery land. I'm afraid it would be a little difficult. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentle with your love. Everyone, please collect it. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentle with your love and hit me. Chapter 5308. Ding! Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing was heard. Yi Qing Luo hadn't even had the time to identify where the sound came from. Following that, she heard a familiar, sinister, and treacherous voice, laughing sinisterly. Demon Dragon, you've done very well. That voice, wasn't it? Huang Weio's voice. Following that was Long Out Yen's icy cold voice. This seat merely hates that woman's daughter. It has nothing to do with you. Don't flatter yourself. This seat is able to obtain this vessel. No matter what, it's all because of you. Huang Weio didn't mind Long Out Yen's rudeness. When this seat fuses with that vessel which can nurture the divine phoenix profound heart jade, swallow the divine phoenix profound heart jade, obtain the divine phoenix's inheritance, and unify the world. This seat will definitely let you become the Lord Demon Dragon, who is second only to one and above all others. Long Out Yen snorted coldly. If this seat wants, I can totally override your head. Who do you think you are? He paused for a moment and continued to humiliate. Revered Ryu, if this seat wants to deal with you, based on your current state, can you stop this seat? Huang Weio didn't make a sound, but from the rhythm of his breathing, Yi Qing Luo could roughly feel that Huang Weio was suppressing his own anger. After all, based on Huang Weio's temperament, he had always been arrogant and looked down on everyone. To be humiliated by Long Out Yin in this way, if Huang Weio was at his peak, he would definitely tear Long Out Yin apart with his bare hands. But Huang Weio endured it. He opened his mouth, and his voice was much colder. Then this seat has to thank Lord Demon Dragon for showing mercy. This sentence was said with extreme ridicule. Long Out Yin seemed as though he couldn't hear the hidden anger in Huang Weio's words, as he calmly accepted Huang Weio's gratitude. It's good that you know this seat doesn't want to be involved with you, so this seat shall leave first. Huang Weio opened his mouth again. Don't tell me Lord Demon Dragon doesn't want to see how that last Feng Qing Luo is refined into this vessel. This seat knows that woman's daughter isn't living well, that's enough. After Long Out Yen finished his words, there was no more sound from him. Outside, the sinister and cold profound yin qi was wreaking havoc. Huang Weio roared furiously, Long Out Yen! Long Out Yen! How dare you be rude to this seat? Once I merge the divine phoenix profound heart jade with the vessel, I will kill you first. The commotion lasted for a long time. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she roughly understood that she might be in a container, being refined by the intense flame. Huang Weio was planning to, after refining her and the divine phoenix profound heart jade, he would use them directly? This is too sinister. Huang Weio had even specifically cut off her Azure Water Divine artifact and the mental magnetic field that connected it to the Azure Water Bracelet and the pet space. It seemed like they had made sufficient preparations. However, the conversation between Huang Weio and Long Outyin had transmitted a message. The current Huang Weio seemed to be in a very bad condition. Huang Weio endured Long Outyin's blunt insults. As for Long Outyin, his attitude was insolent, as though he could kill Huang Weio any time he wanted. In other words, as long as she could think of a way to leave this refined vessel, he could deal with Huang Weio directly. Of course, the prerequisite was she wouldn't be refined by Huang Weio directly. She had to think of a way. The current her was still able to withstand this kind of intense flame, but as time dragged on, no one knew what accidents would happen. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler and collect me. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler and hit me. Chapter 5309. Yi Qing Luo tried to nudge her body. The iron chain around her waist had imprisoned her so that she couldn't move at all. She pursed her lips as her vision swept across the blazing flames, as though her fingers were surrounded by the flames. Under the illumination of the flames, her fingertips seemed to be crystal clear, like a beautiful jade in the midst of the flames. And on that beautiful jade fingertip there was an exquisitely carved profound phoenix ring, which looked like a flying phoenix, but now it was empty. She rubbed it with her fingers. She wasn't used to it. Usually, whenever she thought of DMO Xian and saw the profound phoenix ring, it would feel like DMO Xian was by her side. But now, she habitually looked and touched it, but it was empty without the touch of the ring. Huang Weio obviously knew about the connection between this profound phoenix ring and DMO Xian. Yi Qing Luo recalled that before she fell into darkness, she vaguely saw DMO Xian flying towards her. Most likely, DMO Xian might be nearby now. Thinking of DMO Xian, her long and narrow eyes glowed with a bright light. The blazing flames couldn't cover up the radiance in her eyes. She believed that her Xian would definitely find her, and before that, she had to protect herself and think of a way to leave this refining vessel. Yi Qing Luo could roughly deduce from the heat of the refining vessel and the intensity of the flames. If this refining vessel wanted to refine her, it would need at least 5 days. She wasn't sure how long she had been unconscious. At this time, the discomfort she felt was only a prickling pain on her skin, and her breathing was a little hot. She should be able to hold on for another day or two. But after all, this was Huang Weio's refining vessel. It was easy to give birth to heresy. Moreover, everything she knew so far was just her guess. The most important thing now was to think of a way to break free from the iron chains. These iron chains seemed to have a close connection with Long Outyin. It seemed like it was the iron chains that sealed Long Outyin's body. Back then, her mother was able to seal Long Outyin with the iron chains. She would definitely be able to deal with this iron chain. Time passed by slowly. About 2 days' time, Yi Qing Luo finally sensed a clue from the iron chain. She focused her mind and endured the discomfort of being burned by the raging fire. She released her spiritual perception ability and sensed the source of the power of the iron chain. After exhausting his profound energy and mental energy, he spent a tremendous amount of effort to finally cut the iron chains around his waist and forelimbs. Her body, without the support of strength, fell heavily on the fiery ground. The raging fire dragon instantly drowned her, although it was comfortable to be free from the chains. But right now, Yi Qing Luo wasn't any better. She sat on the ground, her whole body drenched in sweat. Her nostrils were filled with thin hot air. The scorching flames burned her skin red. Over the past 2 days, the temperature of the refining vessel had been increasing. When the burning flames brushed past her skin, the stinging sensation became more and more obvious and persistent. Her current body, no matter how many times it had been recast and strengthened, under the power of this flame, it was still unbearable, especially as the black, smoke-like, mysterious inchi in the refining vessel gradually thickened. Yi Qing Luo could feel that the divine phoenix profound heart jade in her heart was faintly agitated. She wanted to suppress it, but even she herself couldn't control herself. "Revered Wu Yu." Suddenly, a hurried voice was heard. That person was obviously in a hurry as he knocked heavily against the refining vessel. "Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please collect it gently. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please collect it gently." Chapter 5310. A heavy collision sound was heard, causing the entire container to let out a buzzing sound. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. Just a touch, and she actually felt her entire body trembling slightly. That person's strength was so huge, not allowing Yi Qing Luo to think further. That person's words diverted Yi Qing Luo's attention. "Revered Wu Yu, it's bad. The cultivators from Earth Realm, Heaven Realm, and God Realm have all attacked the Devil region. Even that demonic succubus woman had betrayed us at the last minute and told the world mercenary group where our army was hiding. Right now, all of our hidden armies have been completely destroyed." Just as that person's words landed, a heavy, heart-wrenching cough was heard. Huang Weio's voice was so sinister that it seemed to be covered in frost. "What did you say?" That person seemed to be frightened, and after some time, he trembled as he repeated what he said. Following that, he hurriedly said, "Revered Wu Yu, not only that, the World Mercenary Group and Feng family have joined hands and led the other 3 realms cultivators to surround Mount Godless." "Huh. Hee. Huang Weio laughed lowly, and that laughter was so sinister that it made one's hair stand. As he laughed, he suddenly smashed something. "You're indeed the brothers that my daughter brought up. Each and every one of you are so affectionate and loyal. I'll grant them their wish." "Woo, revered Wu Yu, what do you want to do?" That person suddenly screamed in terror, and in the end, there was only a miserable cry and no other sound. Huang Weio slowly stood up as his body swayed, and his footsteps were heavy. Yi Qing Luo could hear the footsteps getting closer. Following that, there was another slight tremor. Above her head, Huang Weio's sinister voice floated over. "Those brothers of yours are indeed affectionate and loyal. If this seat refines you into this seat's body in front of them, do you think they can't wait to cut this seat into 1,000 pieces, or because you have become a part of this seat's body, they can't do anything to this seat?" His laughter was sinister and a little crazy. He laughed for a long time. Probably because no one could give him a response, he carelessly knocked on the container again. "Maybe you've already been refined into a container. Then I'll devour you in front of them." Yi Qing Luo knitted her brows tightly. Just now, the conversation between that man and Huang Weio had shocked her. Had everyone in the 3 realms banded together to surround the fiend domain and deal with Huang Weio? Also, what was Huang Weio's hidden army? There was not a hint of panic in Huang Weio's tone. It was as if the so-called joint attack of the 3 realms was expected. As for him, victory was within his grasp. What's more, she was using her to provoke her companions. Yi Qing Luo's heart was faintly uneasy. Did Huang Weio have a trick up his sleeve, or was it because after refining her he would be able to obtain 100% of his strength? Was that why he was fearless? No, she could not let her brothers fight alone. She had to find a way to leave this refining vessel. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up with sparks of fire. Under the sky full of raging flames, it wasn't suppressed by the light. Just at this moment, Yi Qing Luo's peripheral vision suddenly swept across something. By the time she fixed her eyes on it, there was only an endless, raging fire. As though everything was just her misconception. Yi Qing Luo was certain earlier at that moment she had vaguely seen a flash of purple light in that direction. "7th Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love." Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash. Overlord. Please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:11. Purple light? In this raging flame, other than the sky full of red, there was no other color. The sudden appearance of the purple light. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly as she immediately headed towards the direction of the purple light without hesitation. The moment she moved, the surrounding flames seemed to have grown eyes as it swallowed her up. The increasingly intense, scorching feeling eroded her body and mind, spreading to her limbs and bones. Yi Qing Luo gave a muffled groan. No matter how much she could endure, under this kind of scorching flame, the feeling of burning her into ashes was still very uncomfortable. Her eyes were red. Her body was suffering from the intense pain of the flames. She couldn't help but feel irritated and stuffy. Her fingertips brushed past her fingers, which were already empty, suppressing the fickleness in her heart as she tensed up her nerves. In this refining vessel, she absolutely could not release her profound qi. All the energy would become the vessel's energy. She knew Huang Weio was provoking her. He intentionally used the news from the outside world and the psychological pressure caused by the sky full of flames to agitate her. Once she panicked. She wanted to rush out of the refining vessel. Then it would go according to Huang Weio's intentions. Yi Qing Luo continued to move forward. That raging flame followed swiftly, as though it was staring at her. No matter what, it had to swallow her up. By the time she reached the direction of the purple light, it was already the time for a stick of incense to burn. Yi Qing Luo was already exhausted. All the sweat on her body evaporated under the intense flames, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. She forcefully exhaled a few mouthfuls of hot air as she looked around, but there was no trace of the purple light. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips as she slowly sat down to rest. Earlier along the way, the pain of contending against the raging flames was simply unbearable for ordinary people. If she was slightly careless, it was very likely that she would be completely swallowed up by that sky full of flames. But in this process, Yi Qing Luo obviously discovered that her body's degree of heat resistance was getting higher and higher. Even the raging flames wrapped around her face. She felt that it wasn't that unbearable anymore, other than the huge expanse of raging flames, which kept surging into her body, as though it wanted to refine her internal organs through the raging flames. There was also the profound jade heart in his chest, which was also unceasingly stirring. She could already endure being engulfed by such raging flames. This was a good sign, as long as he could stand the heat. She would have a greater chance of escaping this place. Just then, suddenly, the purple light flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes once again. This time, it was extremely obvious in front of Yi Qing Luo. It was obvious Yi Qing Luo seemed to have sensed the other party's presence at one glance. Her pink lips moved slightly as she spat out 3 words. Zhu Wuxin. As soon as he opened his mouth, a heat wave rushed into his mouth. Her throat was dry and prickly. That purple light, it was Zhu Wuxin's aura. What was going on? Not allowing Yi Qing Luo to think deeply. The purple light disappeared in front of Yi Qing Luo very quickly, but Yi Qing Luo saw it clearly. In the direction where the purple light disappeared, Yi Qing Luo only hesitated for several breaths before she lifted her feet and walked towards that direction with difficulty. Zhu Wuxin might know how to leave this refining vessel. As time went by, Yi Qing Luo's footsteps became heavier and heavier. She felt as though she was walking on the spot. The direction of Zhu Wuxin's aura was obviously very near, but it seemed as though it was far away. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:12. But that faint purple light seemed to have given Yi Qing Luo her last hope. Relying on her amazing willpower, Yi Qing Luo was actually close to the refining vessel's body under the burning of the raging flame. Yes, the body. Yi Qing Luo could clearly see the outline of the body that was being burned by the raging flame. Vaguely, she could see the treacherous and mysterious totem jumping in the fire. Yi Qing Luo estimated in her heart. This refining vessel was about the size of an ordinary family's main hall. But it was difficult to take a step here. She was still suppressing the discomfort and only managed to walk a few hundred meters of distance. But she had already touched the body. Then she was not far from finding the exit. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's sweaty eyes slightly sober. Clang! A slight collision sound. Yi Qing Luo's gaze followed it. Faint purple light surged on the totem on the body of the weapon. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand. Boom! A fire dragon mixed with fire and lightning fell down. Yi Qing Luo's hand suddenly felt hot. Following that, the blazing flame wrapped around her. At the same time, Huang Weio's furious voice came from outside the refining vessel. You're really the daughter of Go, or your life is so tough that you can still stir up trouble in there? Following that was the sound of Huang Weio's footsteps. Step by step, like a clap of thunder. Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes tightly. Her whole body felt like it was being burnt by the raging flame. She could even smell a thick burnt smell on her body. But when the raging flame was wrapping around her, she could feel an inexplicable aura surging rapidly from her body. That was a kind of power that even she couldn't control. The buzzing sound in her ears made her dizzy. In front of her, there was only a thick red. I'd like to see how you're going to break my formation. Huang Weio's tone was filled with anger as he sneered. Although Yi Qing Luo was fighting against the raging flame, but for some reason, her 5 senses were very sensitive. She could clearly hear that Huang Weio seemed to be searching for something outside the refining vessel and then stood beside it. A drop of thick black blood fell from the top of his head. Yi Qing Luo could vaguely smell the faint scent of blood. And the moment that drop of black blood fell into the raging flames, boom, 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 the entire crafting vessel instantly erupted with a strong dark force. Yi Qing Luo's entire body was sent flying by this force, crashing heavily onto the body of the weapon. She didn't even have the strength to stabilize her body. She slid down from the artifact and fell to the ground. The increasingly intense and terrifying fire dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it twisted towards Yi Qing Luo. Originally, I wanted to slowly refine you. Since you don't know what's good for you, then you shall follow the divine phoenix profound heart jade of yours and become mine. Yi Qing Luo's ears were buzzing nonstop, as though something was about to burst her eardrums. Her breathing became heavier. The scalding heat made her feel as if her throat was on fire. The tyrannical power in her body was still rampaging through her limbs and bones. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Oh, she moaned softly. One of his hands moved slowly with some difficulty. In the end, it was on her abdomen. The scalding heat energy was gathering towards this direction bit by bit. Pain her abdomen, so painful. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:13. Yi Qing Luo's breathing tightened bit by bit. In the haze, she saw the faint purple light encircling her bit by bit. In the end, it encircled her waist. The fusion of the two energies made the pain in her body slightly alleviated. What is this? Huang Weio's shocked voice was heard from outside the refining vessel. Following that was the sound of stumbling footsteps, as though something was colliding. No! How is this possible? How could she possibly have such powerful energy? The refining vessel was not only refining Yi Qing Luo's body, not only refining Yi Qing Luo's divine phoenix, profound jade heart, but also it was refining her soul, her everything. Logically speaking, in this refining vessel, Yi Qing Luo's energy would be refined along with the refining vessel, becoming the energy after the refinement. How could she possibly be able to explode such powerful energy? So powerful that even he felt horrified, and the current Yi Qing Luo totally didn't know the shock in Huang Weio's heart. Her hands were tightly pressed against her abdomen. Her fingers wanted to exert force, but she forcefully endured it. The two small hands, which were still fair under the raging flames, were now bursting with green veins. The energy which spread from her abdomen to her limbs and bones seemed to have broken through the seal in her body. A steady flow of profound energy broke through the blockage in her body, attacking the heat which was like boiling water. Yi Qing Luo felt the swelling pain in her abdomen, making her feel uncomfortable. But the energy which spread throughout her body made her greedily absorb the profound jade heart, bit by bit merging with her body. She didn't know how long had passed. When Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes again, she could no longer feel the heat in the raging flames, as though she was already used to this heat, as though she was already immune to the heat in the refining vessel. She didn't feel any discomfort at all. The faint purple light encircled her abdomen bit by bit, before finally returning to a peaceful state. At the same time, the unbearable swelling pain also dissipated in an instant. Yi Qing Luo's eyes drooped as she touched her abdomen curiously. Just now, what was going on? Why did she feel as though there was another energy which helped her? Without much time to think, the refining vessel suddenly shook violently. Her body suddenly staggered, and her whole body fell down along with the shaking of the refining vessel. At the same time, the flames that were spreading in the surroundings also gradually subsided as the refining vessel shook. "What are you waiting for? Come out now!" A clear voice whispered in her ear. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and saw a bright ray of light right on top of her head. That was the exit. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes lit up slightly as she speedily got up and headed towards that exit. "No, this seat absolutely won't let you escape." Huang Weio's furious and frenzied voice was like bursts of thunder, blasting into Yi Qing Luo's ears. A strong pressure came crashing down from the sky, as though it wanted to press Yi Qing Luo back into the refining vessel. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly as her fingertips moved slightly, and a bewitching red, profound glow encircled her. There was a loud bang sound. Yi Qing Luo broke through the brilliant rays. Then a hand grabbed her wrist and pulled her to the side. What entered her eyes was a strange and cold basement. In such a huge space, there were only 8 candles, swaying, flickering, illuminating the surrounding environment. "Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler and collect." "Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler and collect." Chapter 53:14. Yi Qing Luo took a clear look at the person in front of her. It was no longer the man in the fiery red robe. Right now he was dressed in a snow-white robe, which contrasted against that pale face of his. His lips were devoid of any color of blood. A pair of chilly eyes congealed deeply on Yi Qing Luo, as though it was filled with countless emotions. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she clasped the man's wrist and felt his pulse. "Zhu Wuxan, what's the matter with you?" Her fingertips had yet to touch the man's wrist when it was avoided. His voice was chilly as he replied calmly, "I'm fine. Now isn't the time to worry about me." Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter as the gaze she used to look at Zhu Wuxan was filled with suspicion. Zhu Wuxan avoided her pulse checking. Apparently it was because his pulse was extremely weak now. She stretched out her hand and was about to forcefully clasp Zhu Wuxan's wrist to check on his condition. Zhu Wuxan suddenly clasped her wrist as his pale lips spat out 2 words, "Be careful." He used a little strength and pulled the young lady into his arms. Her legs swiftly moved backwards. Bam! The intense, profound wave caused that candle flame to sway, as though it was brandishing its claws, searching for its prey in the darkness. After avoiding that attack, that icy cold large palm on her wrist had already shifted away. Under the darkness, the man's labored breathing could be heard clearly. Something wasn't right with Zhu Wu Xian's condition, but she didn't give Zhu Wu Xian a chance to check on his body. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she took out a medicine bottle from her bosom and stuffed it into Zhu Wu Xian's hand. Huang Weio should be in a weakened state now, so it's easier to deal with him. After I settle him, I'll bring you away. That bottle of medicinal pills was specially refined by her to be carried around with her. It had the miraculous effect of prolonging one's life and healing injuries. It was because she had several experiences that she was unable to retrieve the medicinal pills which were stored in her realm space in case her mental energy was disconnected. She specially hid it in the most secretive place on her body. Huang Weio had only taken away her profound phoenix ring. He would never have thought that she would have hidden other pills on her body. Yi Qing Luo slowly stood up as she stood in front of Zhu Wu Xian. The girl's figure was slender and could not be considered tall. However, it gave people an indescribable sense of security. The girl's slender fingers gently moved in the darkness. A flame feather fan appeared between her slender fingers. She glanced sideways at Zhu Wuxin. Her tone was calm and her words were firm. You, stay alive and wait for me. You can't die without my permission. As soon as she finished speaking, she leaped into the air, her fiery red dress drawing a beautiful arc in the air. When the glower flame fan opened up, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel a huge surge of energy in her body, surging and surging, following the music in her body, rapidly spreading to the glower flame fan. The glowing flame fan was bound to her soul. When she was refining the vessel, both her body and soul were being refined, so she was unable to summon her gourd flame fan. After leaving the refining vessel, Yi Qing Luo also gave it a try. The connection between her and the sacred beast, as well as the azure water divine armament, was still broken. However, only the gourd flame fan could sense her. This was enough to show that Huang Weio still had some restraining fear towards the 4 sacred beasts and the azure water divine armament. Even though he felt that the refinement had 100% success rate, he was still fully prepared. There was some kind of array in this place which suppressed Yi Qing Luo's mental energy, the sacred beast, and the azure water divine armament's connection. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:15. Then, as long as Huang Weio died, all the problems would be solved. Yi Qing Luo's target was very clear, directly towards the direction where the profound energy came from. The glower flame fan on her fingertips swept up an imposing, profound wave. The majestic air waves surged in the entire sealed underground room. The ground shook and the stone walls started to crumble due to the strong surrounding air pressure. Yi Qing Luo's gaze shifted to her own hand as her eyes shone slightly. This feeling, it was as though all the energy which had been sealed in her body for a long time had been released. Furthermore, she could control her own power without any qualms. She didn't feel the slightest strain or the slightest bit of backlash. It was totally, unprecedentedly relaxed. How could her body, under the circumstances where she had not advanced to profound grade, suddenly undergo such an earth-shattering change? Without much time to think, Yi Qing Luo's attack had already landed directly on that black figure in the dark. Yi Qing Luo's action of escaping from the refining vessel had obviously disrupted the other party's plans and rhythm. His furious attack was also avoided by Zhu Wuxian and Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's counterattack was avoided by him. Under the dim candlelight, one could vaguely see the figure who was shrouded in a black cloak. Yi Qing Luo's brows narrowed slightly as her fingertips moved swiftly. The raging, profound energy was like a fire snake as it swiftly coiled towards the other party. The profound wave spread extremely quickly. In just a moment, the other party was trapped within her attack range. Feng Qing Luo. The other party's voice was filled with resentment as it carried a vicious, murderous intent, as though he was extremely infuriated. Yi Qing Luo only felt that this voice sounded a little strange, but she couldn't tell what was strange about it. But she didn't think too much about it, because at this moment, she was completely certain that the conversation between Huang Weio and Long Ao Tian in the refining vessel had been verified. The current Huang Weio had forcefully broken through the Divine Phoenix seal previously, and then expended a huge amount of energy to set up such a huge trap in Mount Wu Rin. Even if there was a sinister array which could replenish his energy. But after all, his deeds had already spread throughout the devil domain and other realms, other than his corpse puppets, which could capture food for him or the captives from the battlefield. He had no other way to obtain sufficient food. The current Huang Weio, his strength, was in a weakened state. That was to say, now was the best chance to kill Huang Weio. Yi Qing Luo swept upwards. The glower flame fan turned into a sharp blade, aiming straight for the opponent's vitals. Feng Qing Luo, can you really do it? Suddenly, the black figure's voice became low, revealing a strange gentleness. It was a gentleness that was completely different from Huang Weio's ruthless and sinister voice. Meanwhile, Yi Qing Luo stood in front of the black figure at a close distance as she saw that person's sleeves moving slightly and the black cloak, which was covering his head, slowly fell off. The candlelight swayed even more violently. It clearly illuminated the gentle and elegant face of the person in front of him. It was a handsome face. His facial features were refined, and he looked like a noble young master, noble and awe-inspiring. In particular, those glass-like eyes seemed to contain the warmth of the spring breeze. Yi Qing Luo's actions stopped just like that. A pair of long and narrow eyes widened in disbelief. Widened. How could it possibly be him? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:16. Gu Jingyu. Yi Qing Luo's pupils kept constricting as she looked at that familiar face in disbelief. That man's thin lips curled upwards as he gave a warm smile. That smile was like a spring breeze. Yi Qing Luo was stunned on the spot. And it was this moment of daze. The handsome and refined man's eyes flashed past a trace of ruthless, murderous intent. That hand, which was shrouded in the black cloak, suddenly rose up. Yi Qing Luo saw a flash of silvery color. Her body's instinct towards danger and her acute senses had already made the most intuitive evasive move the minute she sensed the danger and murderous intent. But no matter how swift her reaction was, earlier that moment of daze was enough to give the opponent a chance to take action against her. Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's tone was filled with a rare panic. He stood up abruptly as he dashed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. He who was seriously injured. How would he be able to make it in time? Yi Qing Luo managed to avoid her vital parts, but that sharp blade, which was covered with strange black totem, had already broken her face. Blood splattered under the candlelight. A burst of piercing pain and bone-piercing cold, seemed to seep into her bone marrow. After Yi Qing Luo avoided it, she raised her head abruptly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Her hand swiftly pressed on the wound which had been slashed open, blocking the acupoints on the wound to prevent the poison on the sharp blade from entering deep into her body. This raise of her head made Yi Qing Luo's expression turned uglier. She saw Gu Jingyu licking his lips in disappointment after his strike failed, as he raised the sharp blade. The blood that splashed in the air and was about to fall suddenly turned into sparkling blood beads and flew toward Gu Jingyu. About 4 to 5 blood beads, which were formed from her blood, entered a palm-sized gourd which Gu Jingyu had taken out. He kept the small gourd and hung it on his waist. When he raised his eyes to look at Yi Qing Luo, his thin lips curled into a sneer of ridicule. Feng Qing Luo, you won't be complacent for long. This seat will eventually refine you to become this seat's strength. After Yi Qing Luo sealed the blood on the wound on her face, she speedily flipped over and with a movement of her fingertips, she set off profound waves towards the other party. But after all, the other party's face made Yi Qing Luo unable to harden her heart. In front of him, the figure, shrouded in darkness, instantly turned into a thick black fog and blended into the darkness. Meanwhile, a large number of zombie-like puppets, bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws, suddenly swarmed in from all directions. It was a corpse puppet. Furthermore, they were a bunch of defective goods. These defective products were clearly not completed. Their bodies reeked of a rancid stench, and their flesh was turned over. Almost none of them were in perfect condition. There were at least 100 undead corpse puppets. There were so many of them that it seemed like they wanted to fill up the entire basement. The entire basement was instantly filled with the disgusting stench of decay and the smell of blood. It blocked Yi Qing Luo from following the profound Yin Qi to chase after Gu Jingyu. Let's leave this place first. Yi Qing Luo didn't hesitate any further as she turned around and helped Zhu Wu Exayan up, as her fingers, which were holding the glower flame, fan tightened slightly. If they stayed for a while longer, she and Zhu Wu Exayan weren't killed by the undead corpse puppets, but they were killed by this bunch of disgusting undead corpse puppets. After taking the medicinal pill, Zhu Wu Exayan's complexion looked slightly better, but his lips were still pale. When Yi Qing Luo helped him up and left, most of his body weight was on Yi Qing Luo. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:17. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the coldness on Zhu Wu Exayan's body, as though he had just defrosted out from the ice cellar. His body was really not normal. Hold on tight to me. Yi Qing Luo kept the misgivings in her heart as she locked Zhu Wu Exayan's waist with one hand, as she instructed him in a low voice. After that, she raised her wrist as the raging flame fan opened up. Bam, bam, bam! The profound rays were like a waterfall as it poured downwards, instantly drowning the entire underground room. The majestic and powerful, profound energy swallowed everything in the surroundings. Even the sturdy underground room started to crack as it shook incessantly. Fine stones, one by one, fell downwards, attacking the raging profound wave which formed into a tornado. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo's surroundings seemed to be enveloped by a layer of red glow which was wrapped in raging flames, dazzling and piercing. A swoosh sound was heard, followed by a loud rumbling sound. Yi Qing Luo brought Zhu Wu Exayan as she dashed out of the underground room. What entered their eyes was a dense forest, which was enveloped in eerie yin qi. The surroundings gave off a rotten and damp smell with a faint stench. When they raised their eyes, through the strange-shaped leaves, they could see the dark sky. Just as the two of them walked out of the underground room, behind them, the place where the underground room was located had suddenly exploded. Yi Qing Luo turned her head back. He could still vaguely see that the defective undead corpse puppets had been torn apart by the dark force that was like a raging flame. Together with the basement, it had become a ruin. Yi Qing Luo only used her perceptive power to sweep one round, and after ascertaining that there were no other living beings in the surroundings, she supported Zhu Wu Exayan and left without any hesitation. When she brought Zhu Wu Exayan out of the uninhabited mountain, she then understood. Gu Jingyu didn't even have the intention to battle with her, choosing to leave without any hesitation. This was not only because the other party's ability was not as good as her who had completely transformed. The bigger reason was probably because The entire Devil region was no longer the same as before. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, forming a patch of darkness. The air was filled with a nauseating smell of blood. Occasionally, lightning flashed across the pitch-black sky. The dark clouds rolled downwards, as though a gap had been torn open. And looking over, the Devil region, which originally had peculiar buildings, had already been leveled to flat ground. The flames of war continued, and smoke rose from all directions. Yi Qing Luo's mind suddenly recalled the conversation between Huang Weio and his men when she was still refining the vessel. Huang Weio was telling the truth, using undead puppets to wage war on the major realms. Yi Qing Luo's expression suddenly changed. Oh no, everyone in the band of brothers remained in the infernal domain. If she started a war, wouldn't her brothers be in even more danger? She had to rush to the demon palace as soon as possible and meet up with everyone. Yi Qing Luo was just planning to support Zhu Wu Exan as they headed towards the direction of the Devil Palace. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen, and her face turned pale. She paused for a moment and raised her hand to press on her abdomen. The next moment, she felt an extremely powerful magnetic field surging in her mind, as if some kind of power was returning to her body. On her wrist, the azure dew bracelet that was like a blossoming cherry blossom faintly burned her. Azure dew bracelet, vast water artifact. He was back. The connection between her and the vast water divine artifact was reestablished. Yi Qing Luo's breathing paused, as she hadn't had the time to contact her companions in the pet space. Her abdomen was in intense pain once again. Following that, her entire body's energy seemed to have been sucked out as her vision turned black, as she fell into darkness. Vaguely, she heard Zhu Wu Exan calling out her name anxiously. Yi Qing Luo? Yi Qing Luo. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th Young Mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5318. When Yi Qing Luo woke up once again, she was lying in a slightly dark room, and there was a faint sandalwood fragrance which smelled nice. She glanced sideways as she surveyed the surroundings. This was a spacious bedroom, and the furnishings displayed the owner's taste. She slowly propped herself up as she tried to circulate her profound jade heart. Warm, profound energy spread through her limbs and bones. Perhaps it was because she didn't have enough rest, so even though she had just woken up, her body still felt a little tired. She rubbed her brows as she recalled what happened before she fainted. At that time, she didn't even have a chance to react. The moment her tummy hurt, she lost consciousness. She lowered her head as she took a look at her flat tummy as she frowned slightly. Could it be? Huang Weio had made use of her blood to execute some forbidden art in an attempt to destroy her body? Suddenly, the room door was pushed open as a figure walked in with quick steps. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and saw a cold and noble-looking Zhu Wuexan dressed in a white long robe walking in front of her. Zhu Wuexan, are you all right? Yi Qing Luo straightened her body as she recalled that Zhu Wuexan's body was not normal when they were in the basement. Zhu Wuexan lit up the candle in the room, and as the candle flame swayed, it lit up the entire bedroom. He pulled a wooden chair over as he sat by the bedside as his gaze was serene, yet complicated as he looked at Yi Qing Luo. That gaze made Yi Qing Luo frown uncomfortably. Zhu Wuexan. I'm fine. The man's voice was clear. Yi Qing Luo got up and was about to pull Zhu Wuexan's arm. Then check my pulse. Before her hand could get near Zhu Wuexan, her wrist was held back by him. The man's gaze towards her became even more complicated. It was so complicated that Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Her vision fell onto Zhu Wuexan's hand, which was holding her wrist, and met with that pair of complicated eyes. You're making it hard for me to believe that you're all right. The one who's in trouble isn't me, but you. Zhu Wu Xian placed her hand back into the blanket. Her voice was clear and cold, but the words she spat out were like a bomb thrown out. You don't even know that you're pregnant? Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she was struck by lightning as her eyes widened as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian in shock. What was he saying? Pregnant? Her? How was that possible? There were no signs of pregnancy at all. Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled that when she was in the basement, there was indeed a strange feeling in her abdomen. When she left the basement, she fainted from the pain in her abdomen. Pain! Yi Qing Luo's hand suddenly pressed on her stomach. Before I fainted, my stomach! The child is fine. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze was deep and serene as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's shocked but unconcealable joy, as well as the faint look of anticipation and concern towards the child in her tummy. His gaze grew deeper. But after all, she had suffered quite a bit of shock earlier. If she wants the child to be safe, then she has to recuperate properly. Yi Qing Luo's mind was in a mess, almost unable to think properly. She couldn't believe that in her stomach there was actually a baby that belonged to her and Dmo Xian. Their baby! Yi Qing Luo's hand was placed gently on her abdomen. Her fingertips trembled gently. If Dmo Xian knew about this, he would definitely be as ecstatic as her. He would be filled with mixed feelings of agitation and nervousness. You're very happy? Zhu Wu Xian looked at the young lady's gentle face and seemed to have thought of something as her entire body emitted a sweet and joyous aura, as his heart felt a slight piercing pain. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Everyone, please collect it. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love and hit me. Chapter 5319. Yi Qing Luo's eyes drooped as she looked deeply at her flat tummy as her fingers trembled gently. Happy, naturally, I'm happy. This was her, and Ah Xian's child. In her tummy was the child which belonged to her and Ah Xian. Although there was bewilderment, nervousness, apprehension, shock. But most of it was the joy and agitation of having the crystallization of her and Ah Xian's love. Zhu Wu Xian's fingers under his white robes clenched slightly. That cold and indifferent face concealed all the emotions in his heart very well. He only calmly looked at Yi Qing Luo. His gaze was as cold as water, and his voice was clear. But have you ever thought that the current situation, your pregnancy, will only drag you down? Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was caressing her tummy, suddenly paused as her pupils contracted slightly. Zhu Wu Xian's voice was very cold. You're pregnant, so you must take care of the child in your tummy and not act recklessly like now. Otherwise, it will not be beneficial to your body and the child in your tummy. Moreover, the pregnant you, do you still have the ability or energy to summon the sacred beast or activate the vast water god relic's energy? Have you ever thought of all these? Yi Qing Luo was stunned when she heard that as she fell silent. Right? Now was the best time to capture Huang Weio and get rid of him. She was pregnant at this critical juncture, even if it was for the baby. She absolutely could not put herself in danger again, nor could she go all out against Huang Weio. She wasn't alone now. Furthermore, the pregnant, her activating the god relic's energy, would it affect the baby? This child has come at the wrong time. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze was chilly. Yi Qing Luo, now various domains are fighting with Huang Weio's undead puppets and undead army, causing all the lives in the various domains to be plunged into misery and suffering. And the minute Huang Weio uses the forbidden arts and recovers 70% of his power, I'm afraid that by then the number of people who will die will increase and the domains that will be invaded will increase. Zhu Wu Xian's vision slowly fell onto Yi Qing Luo's palm, which was caressing her abdomen. Especially, Huang Weio has now treated you as his vessel, and even Feng, she has been targeted by him. If he knew that you're pregnant, guess. Would he make use of the child in your womb as a bargaining chip? Zhu Wuxian's words were like a sharp weapon that ruthlessly tore apart the most realistic situation. Zhu Wuxian's words were very cruel, but it was undeniable that he was right. With the birth of this baby, she had to face a lot of problems. Yiqing Luo, you only have one way now. Zhu Wuxian's chilly gaze was at the same level as Yiqing Luo. His voice was calm and indifferent like water. However, the words that came out of his mouth were extremely cruel. This child cannot be kept. Impossible. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened as her body stopped abruptly and both her arms wrapped around her waist. This is my and Xian's child, our first child. I absolutely cannot not want this child. Her gaze towards Zhu Wuxian was filled with vigilance and anger. My baby's timing might indeed be wrong, but since it's here, it's here. The baby is already in my womb, so I cannot possibly give up on the baby. I don't want to hear this kind of words for the second time. Zhu Wuxian went silent. Yiqing Luo caressed her abdomen as she didn't say another word. After a long time, she was a little tired from maintaining that position and slowly leaned back against the bedhead. But her hand was still placed on her abdomen. When her brows drooped, her long and narrow eyes were filled with an obvious, gentle maternal warmth. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:20. The baby's arrival made her overjoyed and excited. But as God Realm's divine phoenix, Feng family's eldest grandchild, she had to bear her mother's dying wish. She had to step forward bravely to settle Huang Wuyo. Especially now, Huang Wuyo's corpse puppets had already infiltrated into various realms. But now, she had lost track of Huang Wuyo's whereabouts. Once she gave Huang Wuyo a chance, she was afraid that, based on Huang Wuyo's viciousness, plus the fact that various realms were in flames, Huang Wuyo might possibly make use of this convenience to replenish the missing energy in his body. By then, it would be even harder to deal with him. And she, under the premise of having this baby, all her actions had to consider the baby's safety. Yiqing Luo touched her abdomen as her mind was filled with thousands of thoughts. The room was silent for a long time. Finally, it was Zhu Wuxian who broke the silence. He seemed to have understood something as he gave a long sigh and his cold voice rang faintly. You don't have to worry too much. The child in your stomach is much stronger than you think. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she raised her head to look at him. In the refining vessel, under that kind of intense flame, the child still managed to survive. Zhu Wuxian's gaze fell onto her abdomen. Plus, after the refining vessel's 100 smelting flame, not only has your body been tempered, the child in your stomach has also gained a blessing in disguise. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She recalled that when she was refining the vessel, Huang Wuyo had continuously increased the intensity of the flames. However, the initial discomfort she felt after being burned by the flames was gradually reduced to not feeling much of a pain. Initially, she thought she was used to that kind of temperature. Now that she thought about it, she was afraid that the change in her body was related to the refining vessel. At that time, her body had been tempered by the refining vessel's 100 smelting flame, so that her body had undergone an earth-shattering change. As compared to before, the state of her god physique was even better. The baby in her stomach, under the 100 smelting flame, it survived well. Not only that, under the situation where she kept on depleting her physical strength and profound energy, the baby was still healthy and had not suffered any fluctuations. It was indeed considered as a blessing in disguise. But what made Yiqing Luo puzzled was, when she was refining the vessel, when her physical strength was not enough, she obviously felt a surge of energy coming from her abdomen. It was this power that allowed her to hold on. Only then could she successfully follow Zhu Wuxian's aura and leave the refining vessel. That power, what could it be? So, Coincidentally, it was at the abdomen position. Could it be that it had something to do with her baby? This thought merely flashed past and was dispelled by Yi Qing Luo. The baby in her stomach hadn't even formed yet. Speaking of which, if Huang Weiyou knew that the refining vessel he had spent so much time and effort to prepare had actually made her stronger, he would have been shocked. He was probably going to vomit blood again. Yi Qing Luo checked her own pulse, and after ascertaining that her baby was fine, she sat up straight. Where are we now? The design of this room did not seem like the demon palace of the demon domain. The two of them should have already left the infernal domain. As expected, Zhu Wuxin answered, the immortal realm. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased as she was puzzled why Zhu Wu Xian brought her to God realm. Perhaps he had seen through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts as Zhu Wu Xian said calmly, Huang Weiyou has already left the infernal domain and currently a large portion of the corpse puppet's army are attacking towards the immortal realm. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:21. The moment Patriarch Feng returned to God realm, he had already headed to the battlefield with the acting God Emperor. Feng family might not be able to hold on for long. So, I felt that you might want to return to God realm, so I brought you back. Hearing Zhu Wu Xian's words, Yi Qing Luo's expression sunk. Huang Weiyou was planning to attack the three realms directly to fulfill his ambition? Yi Qing Luo remembered. Based on Huang Weiyou's current state, did he have the ability to attack the three realms? Once the three realms joined forces, he didn't have much of a chance of winning. But Huang Weiyou had done it. Moreover, before she fainted, Huang Weiyou had already employed the undead puppets to attack the devil's domain. And now, to the three realms. Huang Weiyou shouldn't be doing something he had no confidence in. Unless, what reliance did he have? Yi Qing Luo's expression was unpredictable, as her hands, which were hanging by the side of the bed, clenched tightly into fists. Zhu Wu Xian, thank you. She got off the bed, and with a wave of her arm, the blazing red robe landed on her body. I must go stop Huang Weiyou. She walked quickly towards the door, but before she stepped out of the room, Zhu Wu Xian's cold voice was heard from behind. If it was in the past, I wouldn't advise you. But since you want to keep the child in your tummy, then you shouldn't go over. Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted. Her hand slowly landed on her tummy. Zhu Wu Xian looked at her back as he said, word by word, You know very well that Huang Weiyou must have something to rely on for him to launch such a large-scale battle. If you join in the battle, you won't be able to protect the child in your tummy. Yi Qing Luo's body tensed up as the slender fingers on her tummy gradually stiffened. Yi Qing Luo, stay here. Zhu Wu Xian's cold voice carried a hint of bewitchment as he walked step by step towards Yi Qing Luo's back. This is the safest place in the three realms. Stay here, I'll take care of you, and you'll be able to give birth to the child safely. Yi Qing Luo, for the child in your tummy, you can't take the risk. His hand slowly stretched towards Yi Qing Luo's wrist. His face was as cold as cast, and his thin lips carried a faint smile that was hard to detect. But just as Zhu Wu Xian's hand was about to grab Yi Qing Luo, Yi Qing Luo suddenly took 2 steps back and walked out of the room, avoiding Zhu Wu Xian's hand. She turned around. The wind fluttered her blazing red robe, and her long black hair fluttered like silk. That devastatingly beautiful face didn't have the slightest trace of emotion. She looked at Zhu Wuxin coldly. Her pink lips moved slightly, and her words were filled with a faint coldness. Zhu Wuxin, I don't care why you want me to stay, but you know very well that I can't let Zhu Wuxin attack the 3 realms without any scruples. I can't watch my brothers fight a bloody battle, and I definitely won't let my family suffer any harm. She paused, her long and narrow eyes faintly flashed with a trace of softness. I won't let a Xian fight alone. She was the divine phoenix of the god realm, the pillar of the god realm. She had promised her mother that she would protect the god realm that her mother had failed to protect. She had also promised her brothers that she would not let them suffer any harm because of her. She even promised Dmo Xian that no matter what, she would face it together with him. She couldn't possibly abandon her own responsibilities because of her own selfish desires. Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold eyes faintly showed some fluctuations of emotions. Then you don't care about the child and your tummy's safety? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 53:22. I will try my best to protect him. Yi Qingluo's tone was resolute. Chu Wuxian didn't say a word for a long time. Yi Qingluo turned around as her jet black hair fluttered. Her back view was suave and carried an unquestionable charisma. Chu Wuxian, thank you. Goodbye. This time round, Chu Wuxian didn't stop her. But just as Yi Qingluo's red figure completely disappeared in front of Chu Wuxian, Chu Wuxian's icy cold voice rang faintly. Dmo Xian. Is he really that good? So good that you disregard everything and go over to his side? Huang Wuyu's undead puppets army had grown in numbers, and it was already more than 1 million, and it had the tendency of exploding. Those undead puppets were all elite puppets. They swiftly attacked and occupied God Realm, Heaven Realm, Earth Realm, even Nirvana Realm. It was a bloodbath. There were people who could recognize them. Among those undead puppets, many of them were their loved ones whom they had been searching for a long time. Moreover, they all had one thing in common. Before they went missing, they were all extremely talented in cultivation, or they had been soaked in medicinal pills since young, the hope of their clans. Now, all of them had turned into puppets that didn't know pain, didn't fear death, didn't have souls and 5 senses, only knowing how to kill. Yi Qingluo's entire journey was littered with corpses and smoke. The raging fire pierced her eyes. The air was filled with a thick stench of blood. All of these were the traces left behind by the war. Yi Qingluo endured the surging feeling in her stomach as she placed one hand on her abdomen and speedily walked on the battlefield, nearing her destination. God Realm. About 100 miles away from the Feng residence, it was a wasteland. The originally bustling main city had long fallen into enemy hands. Only the Feng residence and a few aristocratic residences remained standing. A purple figure stood on top of the city walls with his hands behind his back. The battle cries of the undead puppets and God Realm's guards reverberated in the sky. The man's peerless face was filled with an icy coldness. Still worried about Las Luo? An old voice was heard from the man's back. The coldness on the man's body receded slightly. Grandfather, that girl is the destined ruler of the divine emperors, the destined successor of the God Realm, so no matter what happens, nothing will happen to her. Patriarch Feng slowly walked to the man's side and looked at the battlefield with him. Blood dyed the dark sky red. Mo Xian, Feng clan's master, suddenly spoke. He looked sideways at the man beside him and he sighed, Go! Grandfather. Dmo Xian was slightly stunned. His voice was slightly hoarse. Feng clan master closed his eyes. I know you are staying here to protect us for Luoya. That's enough. Dmo Xian's slender fingers slowly clenched. Feng clan master raised his hand and patted his shoulder. We are also very worried about that girl. I'm afraid only you can find her in this world. Go find her. She's Feng Ji's daughter. Only she can stop this catastrophe. Between Dmo Xian's eyes, there was a faint flickering light. His gaze shifted to the corpses strewn all over the battlefield. Finally, he clenched his fist. Grandfather, I will definitely bring Luo heir, before he could finish his words. Suddenly, a deafening roar exploded. Not far away, a strong force was approaching from afar, as if it was breaking through the sky with irresistible force. That was hundreds of undead puppets clustered together. On top of those undead puppets, a figure shrouded in a black robe stood against the wind. The violent and tyrannical hurricane made the other party's black robe flutter. Seventh Miss, who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentle with your love. Seventh Miss, who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentle with your love. Chapter 53:23. Very quickly he was nearing. When Dmo Xian saw that person's face clearly, the handsome brows on his peerless face creased slightly. It was actually him, Dragon. Proud. Heavens. Recalling that it was because of Long Outyin that he separated from Yi Qing Luo on Devil Destruction Mountain. Dmo Xian's heart surged with raging fury. Long Outyin had betrayed Lil Luo Er's trust. It was because he had lied to Lil Luo, which was why she fell into his trap. Dmo Xian didn't dare to imagine how much suffering Yi Qing Luo would have suffered if she fell into Huang Weio's hands. Long Outyin, you still have the guts to come out. The minute the World Group's members saw Long Outyin, all of their eyes were filled with rage. The gazes they shot towards Long Outyin were filled with hatred. Long Outyin, who was stepping on numerous dead puppets' heads, took a glance at them expressionlessly, and finally his gaze landed onto Dmo Xian. He opened his mouth indifferently without much emotion. Why wouldn't this seat dare to come out? Do you think that you can win this seat? The World Group's members' hands, which were holding onto their weapons, were trembling from anger and frustration. Yes, their abilities were indeed not comparable to Long Outyin, this 10,000-year-old demon dragon, but the minute they thought that Yi Qing Luo had fallen into Huang Weio's hands because of him, even if they knew that they couldn't win him, they still wanted to charge up and fight with him. Long Yunzhan's azure blue eyes were like rippling waves. That usually expressionless face was now covered with thick anger. Demon Dragon King. It's after all just a species which was crowned king 10,000 years ago. The current era belongs to the younger generation. I'd like to see how awe-inspiring this old demon dragon can be. Long Yunzhan's words made the World Group's members all widen their eyes. Qiao Jing gave a thumbs up. Incredible. Our group leader actually knows how to ridicule a human. Pooey, he's ridiculing a dragon. Yan Xiaoyi slapped his head. Be serious. Don't you know what kind of occasion this is? Tong Ziqing looked at Long Yunzhan worriedly. Group leader. Demon Dragon King is, after all, a 10,000-year-old demon dragon. Although you're already the human dragon race's king, but don't worry. Long Yunzhan's eyes were calm as he glanced at Tong Ziqing. With the dragon bone sword in his hand, he leaped into the air and slashed at Long Outyin. Long Yunzhan, a low and dignified voice, stopped Long Yunzhan's actions. The shimmering figure on the high platform had suddenly appeared in front of Long Yunzhan and blocked his path. Dmo Xian's eyes were cold and his voice was chilly. His target is this lord. During the period when Yi Qing Luo disappeared, Huang Weio's undead puppets quickly took over the various surfaces. As a result, countless interfaces fought back in a fluster. The battle in the immortal world was the fiercest. Dmo Xian led the Imperial Palace to support them, and as a spiritual pillar, he had not really made any vicious moves. And Long Outyan's appearance, it was obvious that Huang Weio had purposely arranged this. Huang Weio had already calculated that today would be the end of his patience. He had predicted that he would definitely leave the battlefield today to look for Yi Qing Luo. That was why Long Outyin was here. In the entire God realm, the only person who could stop Long Outyin, the Demon Dragon King from 10,000 years ago, was Dmo Xian. It's good that you know this seat can't be bothered to kill anyone else. Long Outyin stretched out both his arms as he floated down from the undead puppet's head and sped towards DMO Xian's direction. DMO Xian speedily pushed Long Yunjian back into the world group's boundary as he raised his palm to meet Long Aotian's attack. Two bursts of energy exploded in the sky. Chapter 53:24. Demon Dragon King's power, even after 10,000 years, was still as powerful as before, shaking the heavens and earth. After DMO Xian's palm met with his, a glint of profound meaning flashed past his eyes as the expression on his face turned solemn. Whereas on the other side, those who were entangled with the undead puppets didn't have the time to observe this battle. The undead puppets, which didn't know fatigue, swarmed towards them once again. Originally, when they were dealing with those hundreds of thousands of undead puppets, Godrealm soldiers and those who came to help were already having a hard time. Now, Long Aotian had brought another batch of obviously more powerful elite undead puppets to join in. That made it even harder for them to resist. That batch of elite undead puppets only numbered a few hundred, but their battle power was shocking. In just a short moment, they had already defeated the soldiers who were defending the first line of defense, just as the elite undead puppets were about to attack the second line of defense. Long Yunjian raised his long sword and azure, blue profound light shot out, turning into a majestic and vast sword chi as it slashed upwards. That azure blue long sword's blade seemed to be covered with a layer of thick dragon scales, indestructible. Bam, bam, bam. Among the undead puppets, the profound light exploded as the air was filled with a majestic, imposing manner. Under the sky full of profound light, Long Yunjian's figure was faintly discernible as the azure blue long sword in his hands slashed out numerous sword waves. Long Yunjian's eruption gave the soldiers sufficient morale. The battle instantly turned incomparably fierce. The other members of the world group weren't to be outdone as they carried their weapons and charged up, as compared to the first line of defense, which was easily defeated. As for the second line of defense, that bunch of elite undead puppets were actually unable to break through. However, while the others were unaware of it, the blood-stained sky was gradually covered with a layer of thick black fog. The fog was filled with a shocking cold air. Soundlessly, neared the second line of defense. DMO Xian, who was exchanging blows with Long Aotian, indistinctly sensed a strange change in the air. Just as he was about to shift his gaze over, Long Aotian's figure had already blocked his line of sight. That sunken cold face was filled with a tinge of admiring battle intent. "Young lad, you dare to be distracted while exchanging blows with the seat. Are you looking down on this seat?" His light words were accompanied by an even more ferocious attack. Before anyone realized it, Yemo had already left. In the void of the second line of defense, a vortex-shaped black hole was slowly torn open. Little by little, slowly it began to expand. A vast and boundless dark force, accompanied by cold yin chi, spread out from the entrance of the cave. The thick black mist formed a huge palm. Like 5 sharp blades drilling out of a black hole, they grabbed towards the world group members on the battlefield. "Be careful!" Xiao Jin sensed that something was wrong. His pure, golden pupils reflected a large patch of thick black mist. His first reaction was swift as he stretched out his long arm and immediately clasped Yan Xiaoyi's slender waist, bringing her into his embrace. The 5 sharp fingers, formed by the black fog, brushed past Xiao Jin and mist. However, the other members were also swept into the palms of the black fog. Ah, screams of pain came from the mouths of those members. Zi Qing. Long Yunjian sheathed his sword and turned around to see Tong Ziqing hanging in midair. Quite a number of members were also suspended in midair as they kept on struggling. Long Yunjian and Xiao Jin exchanged glances and speedily leapt up, attempting to charge towards that black fog palm which had drilled out of the black hole. But 20 over undead puppets swiftly appeared in front of them, blocking the path of those who wanted to head up to rescue her. Chapter 53:25. They totally had no way to get close. Long Yunjan and Xiao Jin's pupils contracted as the expression on their faces turned extremely aghast. The two of them tried their best to kill the undead puppets in front of them, as they wanted to charge forward to save the World Group's members. But that black hole whirlpool, which was surging with waves, was extremely fast. After grabbing more than half of the group members, it swiftly swallowed them into the black hole. The black hole was shrinking bit by bit. Bam! Suddenly, a deafening explosion resounded from the horizon. It shook the entire ground. A devilish red glow instantly covered the entire sky. It also covered that huge black hole, as it was dyed with a large patch of fresh blood red. The devilish red glow seemed as though it was burning the entire sky as it gave off a hissing sound. Everyone saw a blazing red fan as it spun in midair, as though it was a sharp blade, enough to slice everything in the world, including the profound chi that was formed. The blazing red fan forcefully cut off the hand which was stretched out from the black hole. The World Group's members all started to fall from midair. Clang! A deafening cry caused the entire battlefield to surge with a surge of high-spirited battle power. Fiery red flames streaked across the sky. A huge vermilion bird spread its wings and soared as it steadily caught every single member of the World Group. A brilliant tail, as though it had ignited the entire sky with a raging flame. That is Qing Luo. It's Qing Luo's glower flame fan. And the scarlet flame is Qing Luo here. When the World Mercenary Group's members saw this familiar glower flame fan and the vermilion bird, their faces revealed an overjoyed expression. Under the sky full of raging flames, a bright young lady dressed in red, like a blossoming, bloodthirsty poppy, seemed as though she was stepping on the flames. Her fair hand lifted slightly. The glower flame fan spun one round in midair as it landed into her palm. She stood casually in midair as numerous devilish red glow encircled her body, as though a fairy from the 9 heavens had descended, noble and wholly unattainable. Qing Luo. It's Qing Luo. Quickly look, it's Madame Qing Luo. Countless ecstatic voices sounded from the battlefield. When all the profound practitioners who were participating in this battle heard these excited cheers, they all looked towards the horizon, at the red figure that was covered in raging flames. Even Long Ao Tian, who was entangled with DMO Xian, was slightly dazed when he looked at Yi Qing Luo. Bang! The girl in the air suddenly raised her hand. A ray of light shot out from his fingertips. Long Outyen, who was still in a daze, was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. Long Outyen was still in a daze, and he was lying on the ground motionlessly. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's gaze, it seemed as though he had seen another person through Yi Qing Luo, sinking into his own memories. Yi Qing Luo's posture was dignified. With an absolute disdainful stance, she raised her voice and shouted, "This phoenix will absolutely not allow you to endanger the safety of the various worlds." Her expression was cold as she swept her gaze across the battlefield, at the people fighting against the undead corpse puppets. All of you have put in so much effort to protect the various worlds. This phoenix will remember it. From now onwards, this phoenix will fight side by side with all of you to completely uproot this bunch of people who had invaded the various world positions, attempting to destroy the peace of the world positions, Huang Uyo. 10,000 years ago, this phoenix's mother, the previous God Emperor, died because of sealing Huang Uyo. Chapter 53:26. The young lady's sonorous and powerful voice sounded like a bell. She raised her hand. A majestic force swept out from her body. The flames turned into a phoenix as it circled around her. The cherry blossom petal on the young lady's forehead gave off a bewitching and glaring red glow. Everyone's eyes were dyed red by the flames. In their hearts, a monstrous battle intent surged. One by one, they gripped the weapons in their hands tightly as their profound chi surged and swarmed into the battlefield. The momentum of the battle erupted once again. Long Outyen regained his senses as he slowly stood up from the ground as he looked at Yi Qing Luo with a complicated gaze. However, that noble and godlike young lady did not even spare him a glance. The glower flame fan in her hands pressed against his neck mercilessly. Long Outyen, you coward! You don't dare to admit that you like my mother, so you use such a method to deny it. Do you think, after choosing to help the person my mother hates, Huang Wuyo, you still have the right to like my mother? Her voice was chilly, and there was no hint of euphemism in it. It pierced through the last line of defense in Long Outyen's heart. She didn't kill Long Outyen. Killing him would be the greatest release for him. For the rest of his life, Long Outyen would live in the pain and torment of his past. Yi Qing Luo's return completely destroyed the undead puppets that Huang Wuyo had painstakingly refined. In the depths of the dark abyss, Huang Wuyo, who was shrouded in dense yin qi, sat cross-legged. Chi-Chi website. The dense black aura around him was constantly pouring into his body. It made that gentle face that belonged to Gu Jingyu to surface a dense, evil aura. His entire person seemed extremely gloomy. Revered Wuyu, bad news. A skinny man dressed in a black robe swayed as he rushed in. Revered Wuyu, our puppet army has been destroyed by a woman. She has already snatched the God Realm's territory. Huang Wuyo opened his eyes abruptly. The dense black qi overflowed from his pupils as it circulated bit by bit. That person knelt on the ground. Revered Sir Worryless, the dead corpse puppets led by the various armies cannot hold on any longer. I'm afraid that even the heaven domain and the earth domain will fall. The man continued. Master Long is no match for His Majesty. Now, even Master Long is under His Majesty's control. Venerable Worryless, please take action personally. Fight a beautiful battle for our Wuyo Empire. That person's voice trembled, but it was filled with passion and reverence for Huang Wuyo. Huang Wuyo's hands, which were resting on his knees, were clenched into fists. His eyes were filled with raging yin qi. Yi Qing Luo, it's that woman again. Huang Wuyo gritted his teeth, his face contorted in anger. Revered Sir Worryless, we have to ask you to take action personally this time. Our brothers on the battlefield can't hold on any longer. That person shouted himself hoarse with hatred towards the enemy. The world can only belong to our Wuyo Empire. Huang Wuyo's face darkened as he waved his sleeves. The surrounding yin qi swirled around and gradually formed a circle in front of him. Not long later, a projection appeared in midair. In the projection, the flames of war raged continuously as layers upon layers of baleful qi surged. Both sides' warriors were contending against each other. The dead corpse puppets, which had been meticulously nurtured, should be an invincible existence. However, when the flaming figure of the woman appeared, Lin Fan's eyes widened. Chapter 53:27. The elite puppets that he was so proud of had fallen one by one. Standing in midair, the feather fan spun as she waved her sleeves. She easily repelled all the puppets. Little by little, Huang Wuyo's pupils dilated in Huang Wuyo's eyes. Vaguely, he seemed to have seen the past. The girl smiled brightly at him and called out to him with a soft voice. Ah Huang! Ah Huang! Ah Huang! Those cries were surging in his mind. Even the surrounding black qi seemed to have dimmed by quite a bit. Ah! Huang Wuyo covered his head with one hand as the other hand was raised up high, exploding a violent and terrifying profound ray. Rumble! Bam! Everything in the surroundings was shattered by this terrifying profound ray. The entire space was shattered. I will never allow anyone to obstruct my plan. This world will only belong to me alone. Huang Wuyo let out another loud and furious roar. Suddenly leaping into the sky, he turned into a black shadow, and under the gloomy yin qi, He scurried into mid-air. In a blink of an eye, he disappeared into the abyss. At the same time, the skinny man who was kneeling on the ground suddenly fell to the ground. Plop! The black robe that enveloped his body fell to the ground, revealing the eerie white bones under the black robe. That wasn't human at all. Indistinctly, a wisp of alluring red light floated out from that white bones. In the end, it disappeared under the yin qi that filled the sky. Huang Wuyo stood in the sky, stepping on the thick, dark qi. 1-8, even thousands of miles away, he could see the situation of the various domains. His sharp eyes were searching for traces of Yi Qing Luo. The raging murderous intent in his eyes was like a storm about to explode. Suddenly, his vision fell onto a certain interface. That was Yi Qing Luo's group of companions. If they were here, Yi Qing Luo would definitely be here too. Black qi lingered in Huang Wuyo's eyes as he speedily flew towards the direction of the Earth domain. Fresh blood spread across the battlefield, and countless dismembered corpses were scattered all over the ground. However, it was as if they had their own consciousness as they continued to squirm and attack the soldiers in the land again. However, when a batch of them went up, they were chopped into pieces by the young boys and girls. In the end, they were turned into minced meat that could no longer fight. Under the leadership of the barbaric Bloodbone King, the soldiers of the Earth realm approached step by step. The undead corpse puppets, as well as the major forces that had sided with you, Huang Wuyo, were forced to retreat again and again. The news of Huang Wuyo's forces being wiped out from the deity world had spread to the other planes. This boosted everyone's morale, and the more they fought, the braver they became. Huang Wuyo's forces seemed to have lost their backbone, just as the barbaric Bloodbone King and the World Mercenary Group led their soldiers and other mercenary groups to annihilate the last wave of Huang Wuyo's forces. Suddenly, a thick black fog surged up from the horizon. It was like an open mouth that swallowed all the light in the world. Violent and overbearing profound energy, accompanied by a soaring murderous aura, slashed downwards. The gloomy yin qi was like an icy frost that spread across the entire battlefield. The soldiers of the World Mercenary Group quickly raised their heads and looked towards the horizon. In the dark sky, a black figure seemed to have merged with the sky. Only half of the figure could be seen clearly, but it was so huge that it almost covered half the sky. When they saw the face of the figure clearly, Long Yunjian frowned. Long Yunjian frowned. Young sect master Gu? I originally wanted to post the ending in one go after writing it, but after thinking about it, I decided to first post a few chapters to tell the babies who are still waiting for the ending of the Divine Phoenix Empire. The next update should directly update all the endings. The ending is a little rushed. I hope everyone can forgive me. If I have the time, I will write the extra chapters. Regardless of whether my babies read it or not, I will still write the extra chapters for the CP. This is just Master Mo's yearning, and also Divine Phoenix's yearning. As for the reason, I can't explain it. Those who haven't experienced it will not understand it. I just want to say that if it wasn't for the fact that they were so mentally broken that they couldn't stand up, no author would put down the book that they deeply loved for so long and let their beloved babies wait for so long. Writing an ending is my final explanation to everyone, to the Divine Phoenix and to myself. As for the new book, I don't have any ideas for now. I can't keep up with the current trends and hot topics, so I need to enrich myself. Chapter 5328. No, he's Huang Wuyo. Yan Shaoyi frowned. Look at his eyes. The figure in mid-air was Huang Wuyo, who was floating in the air. Although he had a gentle, jade-like face, there wasn't a single trace of color in his eyes. It was filled with a dense black qi. It made him look incomparably ruthless. Huang Wuyo, you finally appeared. A rat hiding in the dark dares to play tricks behind our backs. If you have the ability, then come and fight with us. The brothers of the World Mercenary Group revealed an enraged expression when they found out that this person was Huang Wuyo. The various large domains were currently embroiled in the flames of war, and countless of innocent commoners had died in the hands of the flames of war. There were also numerous large families and powerhouses who had sacrificed countless of their loved ones and elite disciples before they could barely defend their homes. The main culprit of everything was Huang Wuyo. Huang Wuyo floated in midair as the dense black yin qi churned like a black wave, making him look even more sinister. His ruthless eyes coldly swept across the people below him as his voice was cold and sinister, as though he had an echo effect, making him seem even more sinister. "A bunch of ants dare to fight with me?" His sleeves moved. The surrounding black yin qi suddenly turned into a huge black dragon as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it charged towards the World Mercenary Group brothers. That black dragon was surrounded by a dense black fog, but its speed was extremely fast. The moment it neared them, they felt a sharp xian wave attacking their cheeks. It was horrifying, as though death was approaching. The faces of the World Mercenary Group turned pale as they hurriedly tried to retreat. But their speed was too late. Just at this critical moment, a loud pung sound rang out. Countless eerie white bones broke out from the ground as it formed a bone wall, blocking the incoming xian wave. It also protected the group. Yan Xiaoyi's expression eased up slightly. "Luckily Uncle Bone is here. Otherwise we, Click the book vault. Before she could finish her sentence, everyone had yet to heave a sigh of relief. Huang Wuyo's attack. When both parties collided, the black dragon dissipated into the air. That bone wall suddenly split open with a crack. Following that, cracking sounds could be heard as it split open. Countless eerie white bones shattered onto the ground. Oh, the Bloodbone Barbarian King, who was in front of everyone, spat out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed slightly. He immediately tightened his grip on the bone spear in his hand and fiercely stabbed it into the ground, barely managing to maintain his balance. Bloodbone Barbarian King. Uncle Bone. The members of the band of brothers had worried expressions as they called out to him. The Bloodbone Barbarian King waved his hand. "It's nothing." He gasped lightly and slowly stood up with his spear. His face was strangely pale. "You guys have to be careful. His power seems to have become stronger." Originally, from the news that Yi Qing Luo brought back, they knew that Huang Wuyo had been using the dead corpse puppets and other forces that he controlled to charge and break through the enemy lines. Totally because Huang Wuyo had met with an accident when he was trying to break the seal forcefully. Then he was messed around by Yi Qing Luo time and time again. His main body became extremely weak. His strength was far from his peak 10,000 years ago. But as the Blood-Bone Barbaric King from 10,000 years ago, according to what Yi Qing Luo said, his profound energy should be above Huang Wuyo. But from that exchange just now, the barbaric Bloodbone King clearly felt Huang Wuyo's powerful xian wave. That was absolutely not the weakened state of his main body. During this period of time, what on earth did Huang Wuyo do? Chapter 53:29. Ha ha ha. Huang Wuyo laughed maniacally as he looked down coldly at the man below. "Bloodbone, we haven't met for so many years, and you're still the same, knowing your place." Bloodbone Barbaric King's eyes darkened. Huang Wuyo opened his arms wide. The black fog in the sky surged. It was as if the entire sky had become his slave. Bloodbone Barbaric King held his Bloodbone spear tightly as his eyes were filled with viciousness. "Huang Wuyo, I was too self-aware. That's why I gave you the chance to hurt Huang Wuyo's maniacal laughter stopped abruptly. His face was cold as he stared at Bloodbone Barbaric King fiercely. "What are you? Who allowed you to call her that?" This title can only be used by me alone. You're the one who hurt her. You're the one who made her soul dissipate. What right do you have to say that?" Bloodbone Barbaric King sneered. Huang Wuyo's expression turned uglier by the minute. The surging black Yin Qi bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it clamored. It was a declaration of Huang Weio's anger. "She's also my wife and my daughter's mother." Huang Weio's voice was filled with terrifying ruthlessness and madness. "And you are just a trash who doesn't even have the right to stand beside her." Blood Bone Barbaric King wasn't angry but sneered and ridiculed. "Your wife? Have you ever treated her as your wife? You've only been using her. All along using her. Your daughter? Have you ever treated Qing Luo as your daughter? What you've been coveting is the profound heart jade in Qing Luo's body, which can inherit the divine phoenix's bloodline. From the start, you've only loved yourself." He held the blood-bone spear and pointed it towards the sky as he sneered. "Huang Weio, you're very clear that Guo will never forgive you and will never forgive you. So, you're very upset in the depths of your heart, am I right?" He could hear the hysteria in Huang Weio's tone. He could also hear the anger from him, trying his best to deceive himself. Because Huang Weio was very clear of his position in Feng Ji's heart. Other than hatred, there was only hatred. 100 Flowers, literature, Feng Ji's feelings for Huang Weio had long been exhausted by Huang Weio's repeated ambitions. However, Huang Weio did not want to admit it. He would rather lie to himself and believe that he was still in Feng Ji's heart. The barbaric Bloodbone King could not help but sneer in his heart. Was there any use for Huang Weio to regret now? No, it's useless. Because Huang Weio knew that it was useless, he only had one choice, and that was to follow through with his decision without any hesitation. He would carry on his ambition without any hesitation. Otherwise, all the things he had done would be meaningless. Only by satisfying his ambition could he convince himself of the regret and guilt in the depths of his heart. Perhaps the words of the blood-bone barbarian king had provoked Huang Weio. Perhaps it was the ridicule in the eyes of the barbaric blood-bone king that provoked Huang Weio. His heart, which was already filled with hostility towards the barbaric blood-bone monarch, seemed to have found an excuse to vent at this moment. He suddenly stretched out his hands towards the sky, and an endless amount of power surged. The dark sky was instantly shrouded in black fog. "I absolutely won't regret it. I absolutely won't regret it. Absolutely. I was born to be the overlord of this heaven and earth. All of you, submit to me." Rumble! A deafening buzzing sound exploded with a loud bang. Chapter 5330. The power of the Ancient Ones exploded forth in an instant. Cracks began to appear on the ground as it began to crack. Boom! Countless buildings collapsed. The people standing on the ground began to sway. Not good. He wants to destroy the entire land. Is he crazy? He actually wants to destroy this realm. His strength? How could it be so strong? What's going on? No. Run. Below the Earth realm, everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Huang Weio actually wanted to destroy this world with just a single sentence, causing all the living beings in this world to disappear along with it. This was too ruthless. The barbaric blood-bone king's expression suddenly turned serious. He gripped his spear tightly and raised his eyes to look at Huang Weio, who was emitting a murderous aura. He said in a low voice, "I will go and stop him. Gather the other soldiers first. Follow the order and avoid the places where the cracks are." "Uncle Bone, no." Yan Xiaoyi's eyebrows creased. "That old monster is obviously not normal now, and you even got injured while protecting us." "This king is fine." Blood-bone barbaric king waved his hand. "We can only stop him from continuing his cultivation and hold on till Qing Luo and the others rush over. Then everything will be fine." Long Yunjan's face was cold. "I'll stay and help you." "Me too." Qiao Jin also spoke up. The other members of the world group immediately stood out. "You are no match for him." Barbaric Bloodbone King shook his head in rejection. "Let's not waste any more time here. If we continue to stay here, the Earth realm will have no hope and we won't be able to wait for Qing Luo's arrival." Qiao Jin still wanted to say something, but Long Yunjian had already grabbed his shoulder. There was no time to waste. If the Earth domain was really destroyed by Huang Weio, the other realms would probably be affected as well. At that time, Huang Weio would probably use the same method to deal with the other realms. Everyone began to move in an orderly manner. The blood-bone barbarian king looked at the young faces behind him. At this moment, each and every one of them was seriously mobilizing the other soldiers. It was so orderly, so calm. He gripped the spear in his hand tightly. He pressed his hand tightly against his chest. He had promised Go, or that he would protect her daughter. He had also promised Go, Er's daughter, that he would protect her brother. Therefore, he had to stop Huang Weio's crazy behavior. The blood-bone barbarian king clenched his fingers tightly and leaped forward with his spear. Huang Weio, stop being so stubborn. The things you've been pursuing have always been wrong. Countless densely packed, bloody bones stretched out from his body and spread out in all directions like a cobweb. Those bloody bones disappeared into the thick black mist that filled the sky. Oh! The blood-bone barbarian monarch suddenly let out a muffled groan when it entered the black fog and quickly stretched towards Huang Weio. The black energy quickly followed the blood-bone and bound it. It was as if it wanted to devour the barbaric blood-bone king. A twisted smile appeared on Huang Weio's face. You want to devour me? Bone Lord, do you really think that you are the same Bone Lord that I used and devoured 10,000 years ago? He laughed heartily. What a pity! What a pity! Those tricks of yours aren't worth mentioning in front of the seat. After the blood-bone barbarian king heard Huang Weio's words, the scene of him transforming into foam 10,000 years ago appeared in his mind. Time and time again, he lied to him, hurt him, and made use of him. The scarlet in his eyes turned even redder, as though blood was flowing out. That's right, it's like this. Chapter 53:31. Huang Wuyu. The bloodshot eyes of the blood-bone barbaric king had almost spread to the whites of his eyes. The smile on Huang Weio's face became even more twisted. The thick black fog in the sky slowly gathered and turned into a sharp blade, grabbing towards the blood-bone barbaric king. This heaven and earth should belong to me right from the start. I am the ruler of this heaven and earth. No one is able to stop me. Bam, bam, bam. The cracking sound of the interface was getting more and more obvious. The blood-bone barbaric king's blood bones were entangled with the black chi around Huang Weio. But it was obvious that Huang Weio was about to devour the blood-bone barbaric king. Just at this moment, a clear and cold voice faintly rang out amidst the rumbling that filled the sky. Is that so? But I don't think so. That voice wasn't loud, but it covered the sound of the heaven and earth collapsing. It slowly went into Huang Weio's ears. It made Huang Weio's twisted face congeal slightly. Under the thick black sky, it was dyed with the color of a coquettish flame. In an instant, it lit up the surrounding sky. A blazing figure stepped on the air and came over. The red long dress was like a blossoming flower of sparks, with traces of the raging flames. The young lady's beautiful face was cold, with a noble and unattainable bearing. She held a flame feather fan in her hand, and with a gentle wave, it instantly dispersed all the yin qi. Qi Yan, Yi Qing Luo commanded. Qi Yan opened its mouth and spat out a purifying flame. The moment Yi Qing Luo appeared, the moment the purifying flame spread, the people who were escaping below seemed to have seen the hope of a new life. Yi Qing Luo's fingertip swept. The glower flame fan in her palm spun out. Bam! Crackle! The yin qi surrounding the barbaric blood-bone king was completely dispersed. She flew to the side of the blood-bone barbaric king and supported him with one hand. Uncle Gu, are you all right? I'm fine. The blood-bone barbaric king wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. You must be careful. His current condition doesn't seem right. Yi Qing Luo's delicate brows creased slightly as her gaze shifted to Huang Weio. Between her half-squinted eyes, a cold light flowed. He merely used a forbidden technique to return to his peak potential. Yi Qing Luo said calmly, as her tone didn't seem to mind. At his peak, the barbaric Blood-Bone King's expression suddenly changed. He knew very well that even the Divine Phoenix and Feng Ge could only fight Huang Weio to a draw at his peak. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. Using the forbidden technique is totally going against the balance of Heaven's way. There are gains and there are losses. In order for him to recover to his peak strength, he naturally paid an equal price. She smirked and looked at Huang Weio with an increasingly cold gaze. I'd like to see how long he can maintain his strength at his peak. Ha 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 ha! In the sky, Huang Weio's cold laughter could be heard. As expected of my daughter, you can even tell that I have recovered my full strength. Yi Qing Luo slowly raised her hand and opened the glower flame fan with her fingertips. Do you really think that you can go against me if you recover your full strength? Daughter, aren't you looking down on me? Huang Weio intentionally called Yi Qing Luo daughter in a disgusting manner as he sneered. I know that the current you has completely integrated the profound jade heart into your body and have inherited the God Emperor's power and Go-Er's profound energy. But Chapter 5332. Even if Yi Qing Luo wanted to defend against this last attack, it would be a little strenuous. Her brows creased slightly as her fingertips brushed past the glower flame fan. A wisp of raging flame, light, scuttled. The pressure on her also rose sharply at this moment. Rumble! The earth boundary finally could not take this kind of pressure. The sky suddenly seemed to be filled with densely packed spider web cracks. Kacha! Immediately following that, a crisp sound was heard. The entire sky started to shatter, and the place where it shattered had turned into a huge black hole, as though it was going to swallow the entire boundary. This change made the both of them stop what they were doing as their gazes turned towards the direction of the shattering. The sky continued to shatter, and with a lightning-fast speed, it was about to shatter towards their battlefield. Huang Weio's expression changed as he took a quick glance at Yi Qing Luo and turned around to leave. They could not continue to stay in this boundary any longer. If they continued to stay here, once the crack on the boundary reached their side, the both of them, along with the entire boundary, would be sucked away by that black hole. His original intention was to destroy the earth boundary, but he had no intention to be destroyed along with the earth boundary in this place. He was the dignified, revered Weyu, the person who was destined to ascend to the top. How could he possibly die here along with such a broken boundary? But he had just moved. A fiery red figure had already blocked in front of him. The glower flame fan in the young lady's hand drew out a sharp blade. Huang Weio took a small step back. The sharp blade cut through his hair as it flew along with the hurricane. Trying to leave? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled as her long and narrow eyes curled into an arc. Do you think that this phoenix will let you leave the earth boundary and continue to harm others? This is the destruction of the boundary. Huang Weio's face revealed a rare, anxious expression. Once we are swallowed by the black hole, we will all disappear along with this boundary. So all the more I will not let you leave. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were smiling as her voice was faint and cold. Huang Weio's pupils suddenly widened. You want to die here? No, I want you to die here. Yi Qing Luo's words had just ended when a sharp, cold glint shot out from her eyes. His attacks were getting sharper and sharper. Huang Weio's face darkened as he looked at the collapsing black hole. Yi Qing Luo flicked her fingers lightly. Amidst the raging flames and thick, black yin qi, countless silver threads shot out from the glowing flame fan, wrapping themselves around Huang Weio. The approaching aura of death caused Huang Weio's eyes to be filled with anger. He was like an infuriated beast. Feng Qing Luo, do you think you can trap me like this? He shouted in a hoarse voice, his 5 fingers quickly clenched, and the black robe on his body fluttered in the strong wind. Bang! A powerful and tyrannical, profound energy exploded from his body. The silver wires which Yi Qing Luo had hooked out were all broken by this profound energy. The corner of Yi Qing Luo's mouth overflowed with a trace of blood as her figure took 2 steps back. Since you want to be destroyed along with this realm, then be destroyed. Huang Weio's eyes were sharp and ruthless. He turned his hand and gathered a ruthless dark force, which transformed into a huge black dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it attacked Yi Qing Luo. As for him, he sped towards the direction of the realm. Yi Qing Luo chased up swiftly, but the huge black dragon had sharp claws and a gloomy aura. At the same time, behind him, the crack which was collapsing rapidly was already nearing Yi Qing Luo's back. Ha ha ha! Feng Qing Luo, even your mother is not my opponent. How dare you fight with me? Huang Weio had already reached the exit of the realm. He turned his head and looked at Yi Qing Luo, who was about to be swallowed by the black hole. His face revealed a pitiful but inexplicable excited smile. Once Yi Qing Luo, the descendant of Feng Gu, who had inherited the power of the God Emperor, disappeared from this world. Then no one in this world would be able to match up to him, his plan, his ambition for the past 10,000 years. And it was finally going to be realized. Although it was a pity that his profound heart jade and the power of the God Emperor were not in his hands. But it was enough to get rid of this stumbling block. Just as Huang Weio turned his head and was about to step out of the entrance of the realm, suddenly a ray of golden light passed through the entrance and entered the realm. Immediately following that, a majestic and vast strong aura started to spread. Huang Weio had no time to react at all. He was knocked back into the realm by that ray of golden light. In a split second, the entire realm which was about to collapse was enveloped by this golden ray. The entire realm turned into a patch of golden light, which was extremely dazzling. Countless figures of light and golden quicksand slowly filled the surroundings bit by bit. The collapsing boundary was also stopped by the brilliant golden light, as if it had been fixed in place. Huang Weio was pierced by this ray as he gave out a painful shriek. He speedily climbed up and tried to scurry towards the entrance of the realm. But in the air, there seemed to be a golden barrier which caused him to bounce back. Huang Weio looked at the golden light which filled the sky and faintly sensed something. His expression turned darker and darker. Yi Qing Luo was standing not too far away as she stood in the air. She quietly looked at Huang Weio as he tried to break through the barrier time and time again to leave the realm. She curled her lips as she scoffed. Do you think that now you can still leave this place? What did you do? Huang Weio stopped his actions as he used a vicious gaze to stare at Yi Qing Luo fiercely. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as her eyes revealed an undetectable coldness. Isn't it the strongest revered worryless? Still can't understand the current situation? Huang Weio's expression turned uglier and uglier as the guesses in his heart started to expand. The dazzling golden light enveloped the entire shattered realm. With a speed which could be seen with the naked eye, it drew lines of profound patterns in the air, as though it had formed a golden shackle, sealing everything in the realm. Qing Luo. The voices of the World Group's brothers were heard from the entrance of the realm. The golden light floated and Yan Xiaoyi and the others' faces could be seen indistinctly in the golden light. The God-confining array is about to be completed. Give us your hand and we'll pull you out. Yan Xiaoyi spoke with a worried look. Yes, God-confining array. This realm, right from the start, Yi Qing Luo had intended to use it as bait to lure Huang Weio into the trap. Previously, in the Dark Abyss, that messenger who requested Huang Weio to take action personally was in fact manipulated by DMO Xian by Yi Qing Luo to intentionally say those words in front of Huang Weio. As for that messenger, long before he entered the Dark Abyss, he had already become a corpse. Whereas the moment Huang Wuyo stepped into the realm, he had also stepped into the trap which she had set. Numerous people used their lives to put on a show, successfully attracting all of Huang Wuyo's attention. Yiqing Luo had not expected that Huang Wuyo would actually cooperate with her plan. At that time, she was still thinking about how to silently make the people from the realm leave the realm without Huang Wuyo noticing. Huang Wuyo's attempt to destroy the entire realm had given her a perfect excuse. The people from the realm had all left the realm, and the entire realm had become a perfect place to set up an array. Ancient God confining array. Once this array was formed, no matter how strong the cultivator was, he would be sealed in this God confining array. This array was different from the one which Feng Gu used to seal Huang Wuyo. Feng Gu only made Huang Wuyo fall into a deep sleep. As for the God confining array, while sealing the cultivator, it absorbed all the energy from the cultivator. In the end, the person who was trapped would become an ordinary person, who didn't even have any martial power, an ordinary person in a boundless and empty God confining array. How long could he survive? Yiqing Luo had never intended to kill Huang Wuyo right from the start, no matter whether she was willing to admit it or not. Huang Wuyo was her father. This was an indisputable fact. She would not kill him personally. She would only let Huang Wuyo be trapped in this ancient God confining array forever. Let him be alone in this endless darkness and boundless God confining array, slowly, losing the energy which he was so proud of. Let him repent for all that he had done. Let him redeem himself in his loneliness and despair. For all that he had done, ancient God confining array. When Huang Wuyo heard this array, the expression on his face twisted. His scarlet eyes stared angrily at Yiqing Luo. You schemed against me? It's too late to realize now. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled. This ancient God confining array is specially set up for you. You can forget about escaping from it forever. She suddenly raised her hand and summoned the 4 sacred beasts. The vast and boundless red light instantly enveloped her entire body. She waved her hand. The ancient vast water god relic which her mother had left for her fell off from her body and floated in front of Yiqing Luo. Following the profound light on Yiqing Luo's fingertips brushed past. The 4 sacred beasts gave off a series of beast roars. The sacred beast's energy gathered, and with Yiqing Luo's energy, it linked the 5 vast water god relic together, forming a mysterious totem. A dong sound was heard. The 5 vast water god relic flew towards the brilliant golden light. 2 rays of light merged. The entire realm was covered in a boundless golden color. Rumble, the boundary. No, it should be called the ancient God confining array, started to shake violently. Yiqing Luo glanced at Huang Wuyo indifferently, and when the numerous golden light twisted towards Huang Wuyo's direction, she called back the 4 sacred beasts and turned towards the direction of the entrance. This ancient God confining array was suggested by Guiyu, Ghost Thief, Ghost Doctor, and the rest of the 5 ghosts. It was until they stood out as the main force to set up the God confining array that Yiqing Luo realized that these 5 ghosts were originally the 5 great generals under Feng Gu. After Feng Gu sent Yiqing Luo into the Nirvana realm, he made the 5 ghosts head over to protect her. The ancient God confining array wanted to trap Huang Wuyo, and the most important step to let the array lock onto Huang Wuyo had now been fulfilled. Feng Shi was of the Feng family's bloodline and was the future successor of Divine Phoenix. Ling Long, Huang Wuyo's bloodline. Huang Wuyo's blood flowed in her body. The blood from their hearts was the primer for this God confining array. Huang Wuyo this time would definitely fall into the God confining array with no way to escape. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to reach the entrance and stretched out her hand towards Yan Shaoyi, suddenly a gust of resentment and malevolent Yin Qi attacked her from behind. Yi Qing Luo's expression changed as she speedily opened her glower flame fan to counter that yin qi. She turned around, and what greeted her was Huang Wuyo's malevolent and furious face. His fingers were like a giant eagle as it flew past Yi Qing Luo, attempting to head towards the World Group's brothers, who were crowding around the entrance with a face filled with worry. Yi Qing Luo speedily raised her glower flame fan and split his arm apart. Xiao-yi, all of you retreat first. Yan Xiaoyi's expression changed. The God Confining Array is about to be completed. If you don't come out now, you will. I'll go out immediately. All of you go away first. Huang Wuyo's current stance was obviously to drag everyone to be buried together with him, although the entrance was already sealed by the God Confining Array. But it was inevitable that Huang Wuyo would use the forbidden technique to drag the World Group's brothers in. He was taking advantage of her loyalty, attempting to use the World Group's brothers to force her to give up on the God Confining Array. Yi Qing Luo's gaze turned slightly sharp. Huang Wuyo, stop your futile struggle. You no longer have a chance. Huang Wuyo's current expression was already maniacal, as he bore a kind of imposing manner of a broken jar as he spoke in a stern and eerie voice. Chance? You destroyed everything that this seat has, so this seat can also destroy you. This ancient God Confining Array was specially set up for him, since he wasn't able to escape. Then, Yi Qing Luo could forget about getting out. You still have so many people who care about you and value you. If you were to be buried forever in this so-called God Confining Array, how much despair would they feel and how sad would they be? Huang Wuyo laughed sinisterly as his face was unable to conceal the malevolence. Yi Qing Luo had been paying attention to the entrance of the God Confining Array. On seeing that the World Group's brothers had all retreated to a safe position, she silently heaved a sigh of relief. She naturally knew what Huang Wuyo was planning, but she didn't want to follow Huang Wuyo's wishes. After all, she wasn't fighting alone right now. What Huang Wuyo said was right. The minute something happened to her, the brothers outside the array, her loved ones, and her lover, how much despair would they feel? Moreover, the child in her stomach had not been born yet. Yi Qing Luo's hand gently caressed her stomach as her eyes softened a little. Huang Wuyo, you've already hurt Go. Now you still want to hurt. Go, and your daughter? An enraged voice was heard from outside the array. Immediately following that, inch by inch blood-colored eerie bones drilled into the array entrance. Blood-bone barbaric king's head appeared on top of those bones. Uncle Bone. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk. Why did you come in? Blood-bone barbaric king didn't reply Yi Qing Luo's words, but used his eerie blood bones to construct a densely packed city wall, separating Huang Wuyo and Yi Qing Luo. He looked at blood-bone barbaric king coldly as he gritted his teeth and shouted angrily, Qing Luo is your and Goer's only fetters in this world. Do you really want to destroy the last bit of relationship between you and Goer? Blood-bone barbaric king's sudden intrusion made Huang Wuyo stunned for a moment. The billowing black qi also froze around his body. His ferocious face was extremely terrifying. His eyes were filled with a thick black fog. Blood-bone barbaric king slowly moved towards Huang Wuyo. The eerie blood bones gave off a kacha sound, and outside the densely packed blood-bone city wall, a piece of blood bone, under Yi Qing Luo's eyelids, slowly pointed towards the direction of the God trapping array entrance. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly shook. Uncle Bone's meaning was to let her escape from the God trapping array first. He would restrain Huang Wuyo. From the moment blood-bone barbaric king pounced into the God trapping array, she already had an ominous premonition. Blood-bone barbaric king obviously wanted to sacrifice himself to seal Huang Wuyo. Yi Qing Luo bit her lower lip tightly as she shook her head towards that piece of blood bone. How could she abandon blood-bone barbaric king at this moment and leave the God trapping array alone. Once she was trapped in the god trapping array. It was equivalent to waiting for death. Blood-Bone Barbaric King seemed to understand Yi Qing Luo's intention. Stretching out the blood bone, it directly lifted Yi Qing Luo and sent her to the god trapping array entrance. Yi Qing Luo, don't even think of leaving this place. Huang Wuyo's enraged roar exploded from within the city walls. Boundless black Yin energy expanded rapidly. It almost suppressed the sky, full of golden light. The moment the black Yin Qi expanded, the surrounding Bloodbone City wall exploded into pieces with a boom. Uncle Bone! Yi Qing Luo's eyes were scarlet red as she shouted for Bloodbone Barbaric King. The moment the Bloodbone cracked, Bloodbone Barbaric King let out a painful groan. Immediately afterwards, the sky full of blood and bones began to close in on itself. Bloodbone Barbaric King's figure slowly appeared from the broken blood bones. He staggered a few steps and almost couldn't stand steadily. Yi Qing Luo flew forward and supported Bloodbone Barbaric King. Uncle Bone, are you all right? Bloodbone Barbaric King grabbed her arm tightly as his face turned pale. Qing Luo, you go out first. I'll stop him. No way. Yi Qing Luo rejected without a second thought. Bloodbone Barbaric King's grip tightened. Listen to me. He took a deep breath and continued. Your mother is no longer in this world. The only reason I'm still alive is to protect you on behalf of your mother. I've already lived for 10,000 years, that's enough. Once I'm sure you're safe, I'll be at ease. Listen to Uncle Bone. Leave first and let me complete your mother's last wish. Don't let everyone's hard work go to waste because of me. Yi Qing Luo's pupils kept contracting and expanding. She bit her lower lip tightly as she held Bloodbone Barbaric King's hand and shook her head at him. Let her watch Bloodbone Barbaric King meet his death, while she used Bloodbone Barbaric King's life to leave the god trapping array. She couldn't do it. If you want to leave, let's leave together. Yi Qing Luo raised her slender hand and an enchanting red glow shot out from her fingertips. The Azure Dew 5-piece set converged into a line and connected to the Azure Dew bracelet on her wrist. Majestic, profound energy surged out. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo pulled Bloodbone Barbaric King and flew towards the entrance of the god trapping array. You two are really affectionate, but... Qing Luo, have you forgotten that I'm your biological father? Huang Wuyo's cold voice was heard from the side. The surging Yin Qi had blocked the entrance of the god trapping array. His entire body was emitting a strong gust of qi. The thick black Yin Qi was like a whirlpool which kept spinning rapidly. He was obviously sure that he was unable to leave the god trapping array and was determined to use his last breath to keep Yi Qing Luo in the array. Qing Luo, go. Bloodbone Barbaric King's face turned pale as he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards the entrance of the god trapping array and turned around to face the surging black Yin Qi. The bloody bones that had already been shattered forcefully opened up. Yi Qing Luo was pushed violently and crashed into the black Yin Qi, which was formed by Huang Wuyo's attack. That ball of Yin Qi blocked the entrance completely. There was a strange chill in the dense black Yin energy that accompanied the collision. She shrank back a little, but the black Yin Qi had no reaction at all. Yi Qing Luo suddenly realized something as her expression changed drastically, and she quickly turned back to look at Bloodbone Barbaric King. Uncle Bone, it's bad. His target is you now. This entrance had long been blocked by Huang Wuyo's Yin Qi. Yi Qing Luo would not be able to leave the entrance in a short while, and Huang Wuyo had shown that he was determined to keep Yi Qing Luo in the array, but in actual fact he was deliberately trying to disrupt Bloodbone Barbaric King's cognition. Since Huang Wuyo blocked the entrance, his target was Bloodbone Barbaric King. He wanted to kill Bloodbone Barbaric King. Was it because of Mother? After Bloodbone Barbaric King heard Yi Qing Luo's words, There was no change in his expression. Or rather, he had already guessed it. Just like what he said, the reason why he was still alive was because he wanted to protect Yi Qing Luo, whom Feng cared about. Otherwise, the moment Feng Ji's soul dissipated, he would have followed closely behind. Now, he only needed to delay Huang Weiyou for a little more time. Yi Qing Luo would definitely be able to leave the god trapping array. Because, bam, rumble. A deafening roar caused the entire god trapping array to shake violently. A powerful and overbearing energy descended from the sky, spreading throughout the entire space. Even the brilliant golden light which was flowing in the array was suppressed by that energy until it dimmed slightly. The next moment, Yi Qing Luo's slender waist was locked tightly. An elegant sandalwood scent assailed her nostrils. The familiar smell made her feel at ease. Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as she raised her head in shock. Xian! It was Xian. He had rushed over. Mo Xian's purple robe, under the brilliant golden light, looked like a blooming mandala. That peerless face of his was even more handsome, like that of a god. He held Yi Qing Luo's slender waist with one hand and opened up his palm with the other hand. His sleeve fluttered as he released a powerful, profound energy, blocking in between Huang Weiyou and Bloodbone Barbaric King. 3 bursts of powerful energy, almost enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The surging waves were like waves after waves of turbulent tsunamis, causing the entire god trapping array to show a state of collapse. But being held in Mo Xian's arms and protected by him, she wasn't affected by that powerful pressure at all. The sky was filled with profound waves. Yi Qing Luo saw Huang Weiyou staggered a few steps back, and the profound waves which Mo Xian had darted towards Bloodbone Barbaric King in an attempt to protect him were blocked by an invisible force. But Bloodbone Barbaric King wasn't hurt at all. His face was pale as he pressed on his chest, suppressing the blood gushing up his throat as he trembled to steady his body. His gaze quickly scanned the surroundings, as though he was searching for something. And on the other side, "So it's my good son-in-law." Huang Weiyou looked at Mo Xian with a sinister look, his eyes filled with murderous intent. "But you're not qualified to snatch someone from my hands." Mo Xian stood in the air. His purple robe fluttered as he looked at Huang Weiyou indifferently. "Really? The person whom I want to protect. You can't snatch her from my hands." "Ha ha." Huang Weiyou gave a burst of arrogant laughter. "Do you really think that by imprisoning me here you can win against me? You're just in time." He raised his hand, his withered finger, which was only left with bone, pointed at Mo Xian. "Trying to imprison me. But I will make the 3 of you accompany me in death. 10,000 years ago, Feng Ge couldn't win against me. 10,000 years later, you still can't win against me. Don't even think of leaving this array. Accompany me in death. All of you shall accompany me in death." Following Huang Weiyou's explosive shout, endless, dense black yin qi formed a huge net, tightly encircling the entire formation. His eyes were filled with a maniacal smile and hateful murderous intent. If he was going to die, then he would die together with the world. Huang Weiyou's sharp and ruthless gaze was the first to look at Bloodbone Barbaric King, who was standing in a daze. He gave a sinister laugh. "Then I'll start with you." He fiercely attacked Bloodbone Barbaric King. Inside the god-confining array, the 4 forces collided with each other, constantly tearing each other apart. Bloodbone Barbaric King was still standing in the same spot without moving. "Uncle Bone, be careful." Yi Qing Luo realized that ever since Bloodbone Barbaric King entered the god-confining array, Huang Weiyou's hostility towards Bloodbone Barbaric King had deepened, as though if he didn't kill Bloodbone Barbaric King, he would not be able to get over this hurdle in his heart. His hatred towards Bloodbone Barbaric King had far exceeded hers. Yi Qing Luo wanted to rush forward to save him, But Dmo Xian held her slender waist tightly and said in a deep voice, "He's fine." How could he be fine? Yi Qing Luo looked at the blood-bone barbaric king, who had just raised his head blankly upon hearing her voice, as she shot her gaze towards her. He had no intention of avoiding Huang Weio's attack. How could he be fine? Yi Qing Luo gripped her glower flame fan tightly and was about to split Huang Weio's attack. But Huang Weio's attack was like a hot knife through butter as it went straight down. There was no chance for anyone to react at all. However, Huang Weio's attack landed, but it was a lonely attack. There seemed to be an invisible force around Blood-Bone Barbaric King, helping him to block off all the damage. Yi Qing Luo's heart was finally at ease. Her fingers, which were clutching Dmo Xian's chest, loosened slightly. "Ah, Xian, when did you make your move?" "It wasn't me." Dmo Xian caressed Yi Qing Luo's little head. "It wasn't you?" Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased. "Other than you, who else could protect Uncle Bone under Huang Weio's attack?" She was stunned as she looked at Blood-Bone Barbaric King. Huang Weio didn't expect things to develop in such a way. His ferocious face stiffened slightly. He stared at Blood-Bone Barbaric King intently, as though he wanted to use his eyes to see through Blood-Bone Barbaric King. "You? How could you?" Huang Weio muttered softly. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something as his eyes opened wide. "That force earlier is Gu-er." Before Huang Weio could say anything, Blood-Bone Barbaric King had already stretched out his hand in midair as he muttered a name. "Yes, Feng Gu." That was Feng Ji's power. Huang Weio's face was steely green as his gaze swept across the surroundings viciously. "Feng Gu? You're still alive? Where are you?" When she heard Huang Weio's hoarse howl, Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. Mother. Hadn't her mother already? When she inherited the God Emperor's power, how could that be possible? Blood-Bone Barbaric King's stretched out hand seemed to be grabbing the air, but slowly. A virtual figure slowly appeared under the golden rays. A slender hand fell into Blood-Bone Barbaric King's palm. Although it was just a virtual figure, but everyone could recognize it. This figure was Feng Gu. Blood-Bone Barbaric King grabbed Feng Ji's hand tightly as the cold expression on his face was no longer there. He looked at the virtual figure in disbelief as his eyes were filled with deep nostalgia. Feng Gu gave him a gentle smile. This scene stung Huang Weio's eyes. His dark eyes were covered with gloomy qi as he stared angrily. "Feng Gu! It's you. It's really you." That virtual figure held Blood-Bone Barbaric King's hand as she looked at Huang Weio, even though it was just a virtual figure and the face couldn't be seen clearly. But Huang Weio could still see the indifference on that virtual figure's face. That gaze was as though she was looking at a stranger without any emotions. Huang Weio's heart suddenly tightened. "Gura!" Feng Ji's eyes were calm. That virtual figure seemed as though it would dissipate any time along with the surrounding hurricane. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as her heart tightened. "Mother." Hearing Yi Qing Luo's voice, Feng Ji's gaze fell onto her as she gave a gentle and loving smile. "It's Mother. It's really Mother. Her soul didn't dissipate. That's Mother's obsession." Dmo Xian caressed Yi Qing Luo's head lightly. Perhaps Mother had already predicted everything today, so she left a strand of obsession to accompany Uncle Bone. It was Mother who protected Uncle Bone, and the meaning of this strand of obsession was to protect Uncle Bone. Hearing Dmo Xian's words, Blood-Bone Barbaric King's face revealed a shocked and incredulous expression. He stared unblinkingly at Feng Gu, who was holding his hand, as his eyes were filled with agitation, as though he was about to burst into tears. His hands were trembling as his eyes looked greedily at the person in front of him. His voice was hoarse as he called out in a low voice, "Gu." And this sentence also fell into Huang Weio's ears. Huang Weio regained his senses from the shock as his face twisted. Accompany him? Feng Ge, have you had a change of heart? Have you fallen in love with him? This question was filled with surging anger. Feng Ge's expression was cold as she looked at Huang Weio indifferently. That pair of chilly eyes didn't contain any emotions. She didn't say a word, but only curled her lips, revealing a sarcastic and cold smile. That smirk of sarcasm fell into Huang Weio's eyes, making him grit his teeth in anger. He understood. Feng Ge was ridiculing him, questioning him if he regretted it because of his ambition. She was ridiculing him, asking him if he had really fallen in love with her and couldn't accept her being with another man. No, he didn't regret it, and he absolutely wouldn't regret it. All he cared about was this woman. Her heart and eyes should be filled with him. Huang Weio's emotions were getting more and more furious, almost falling into madness. And at this moment, Yi-Ching Luo, who was staring at Feng Ge in a daze, suddenly heard a gentle and loving voice in her mind. Luo? Ah! Yi-Ching Luo's eyes went blank as she clutched DMO Xian's lapel tightly. Mother! Don't speak, listen to Mother. Feng Ge's gentle voice was like a warm breeze caressing her face. Yi-Ching Luo's heart inexplicably surged with an ominous premonition. Feng Ge laughed lightly. Luo, the only person who can end this catastrophe is you. Listen to Mother and do as I say. Yi-Ching Luo's heart tightened as she asked in her heart, Then Mother, what about you? Mother is originally not a person of this world. You don't have to be too sad. This is Mother's fate. Feng Ge's voice sounded a little relieved. Finally, it's going to end all of this. Her gaze seemed to be on Yi-Ching Luo's abdomen, filled with love. I didn't expect that I would have the chance to see my daughter become a mother. Feng Ge's tone became increasingly gentle. Luo, this is the last gift that I, as a grandmother, give to you. Following Feng Ge's words, Yi-Ching Luo only felt a dull feeling in her heart. The next moment, Feng Ge suddenly flew up and rushed towards the direction of Huang Weio. Gur! Blood-bone barbaric king's pupils contracted as he screamed. However, Feng Ge hugged Huang Weio tightly. A glaring god emperor's power exploded from her body. Huang Weio's body, under Feng Ge's forceful restraint, fell into the brilliant golden array abyss. At the same time, Feng Ge's words rang in Yi-Ching Luo's mind. Bring them leave! Yi-Ching Luo clenched her fingers tightly as she took a deep look at the direction where Feng Ge and Huang Weio had fallen and raised her head to look at DMO Xian. Ah, Xian, this is Mother using her last bit of energy to protect you. Don't let her down. DMO Xian sighed softly. Now that Feng Ge was only left with a sliver of obsession. Even if they could leave the god confining array, Feng Ge would not be able to survive in this world. The real Feng Ge was no longer in this world. This was the only chance to seal Huang Weio. In the abyss, Huang Weio's angry howl was heard. Feng Ge! Bam! A deafening explosion was heard. DMO Xian hooked Yi-Ching Luo's slender waist. There's no time to hesitate. Let's go! In the array abyss, large swathes of black qi surged out from the seal. With the momentum of lightning and thunder, it swiftly coiled upwards. DMO Xian hooked Yi-Ching Luo with one hand and pulled Bloodbone Barbaric King with the other as they flew out of the god-confining array. At the instant when they left the god-confining array, Yi-Ching Luo felt a scorching hot sensation from her abdomen. Boundless energy filled her entire body. Luo, in order to trap Huang Weio in the god-confining array, we will need you, the God Emperor, to use the power of the God Emperor to make the final seal. You can do it. Yi-Ching Luo raised her head and exchanged glances with DMO Xian. There was no need for superfluous words. Their hearts were connected. DMO Xian held her hand tightly as his eyes were gentle and loving. If you want to do it, I'm here. Yi Qing Luo nodded as she pulled his hand over and placed it on her abdomen. Wait for me. This action made Dmo Xian's pupils shrink abruptly. He looked at his palm in disbelief. The young lady's flat abdomen was emitting a scorching heat. Yi Qing Luo smiled at him and immediately closed her eyes as she flew up into the sky, following Feng Ji's lead. The vast aqua divine weapon, which had blended with the brilliant golden light. Following Yi Qing Luo's summon, it quickly twisted and formed a strange totem. The energy from the abdomen lingered around her limbs. A huge light spot seemed to appear in front of Yi Qing Luo's eyes. She slowly extended her consciousness into that bolt of light. Boom! A buzzing sound rang in her mind. A glaring and majestic profound energy flew out between heaven and earth. All the energy gathered at this instance. The strange totem in the sky, one after another, stacked up and consolidated, forming a huge seal. It's out! Huang Wuyo's black qi. Oh no! The god-trapping array is still lacking a little. The surroundings rang with the world group and the other cultivators' cries of alarm. Could it be that all their previous efforts were going to be wasted? Everyone's faces revealed a difficult expression as their hearts were as dead as ashes. They had finally expended a huge amount of energy, sacrificing the entire territory as an array just to seal Huang Wuyo. They had not expected. In the end, he still managed to escape. The swift and violent black qi sped around as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it charged out of the god-trapping array. Just at this moment, the sky full of huge totems instantly gathered together. A loud dong was heard as it heavily smashed onto the entrance of the god-trapping array. It also directly cut off the black qi, which Huang Wuyo had drilled out. Dmo Xian waved his sleeves as boundless profound energy gushed out, dispersing the blade of black qi which had drilled out of the god-trapping array. The brilliant golden flowing light and the bewitching red glow intertwined as it encircled the entrance of the god-trapping array, layer after layer, wrapping it up completely. The huge shackles firmly sealed the entire god-trapping array. Gradually, the brilliant golden flowing light and the bewitching red glow faded. The entire huge god-trapping array also slowly concealed itself. It turned into a withered city. Yi Qing Luo slowly opened her eyes as her fingertips swept. A drop of blood seeped out from her finger as it dripped onto the array's eye. A ball of red glow spread throughout the entire array. Once again, it concealed itself. Yi Qing Luo retracted her hand. The vast water divine armament which was suspended in a line in the sky slowly returned to Yi Qing Luo's body. The four sacred beasts also returned to the pet space the moment the array settled as they collectively fell into a deep sleep. Success, success. The god-trapping array has trapped Huang Wuyo? Has it ended? Everything really ended? Everyone at the scene stared blankly at the array in front of them as their emotions surged. A dry and hoarse voice came out from their throats, filled with shock and careful probing, but also with hidden excitement. This battle with Huang Wuyo, it had already caused all the major realms to fall into an abyss of suffering. Finally, it had ended. Yi Qing Luo looked deeply at the array as the stone hanging in her heart gradually fell. No matter how strong Huang Wuyo was now, no matter how great his ability was, today it was of no use at all. The god-trapping array made him lose his freedom forever, and the power that her mother left in the god-trapping array was enough to make Huang Wuyo, who had used the forbidden technique, to increase his strength, to speed up his disappearance in the god-trapping array, because the forbidden technique would definitely backfire. This time it was really over. The moment Yi Qing Luo retracted her hand, her body, which was standing in the air, staggered slightly. Immediately, as if she had lost all her strength, she fell from the sky. However, Yi Qing Luo did not panic. Instead, she closed her eyes. As expected, she fell into a warm arm. Her arms encircled the other party's waist as she buried her face into his embrace. I knew that you would definitely catch me. You're too reckless. Although DMO Xian's words were grumbling, but it was indeed filled with deep concern. You're not alone now. Have you ever thought that I would be worried when you act so recklessly? Yi Qing Luo's little face stiffened as she widened her eyes and stared at him. Why? Now that you have the little one, you're starting to be fierce to the big one? Tell me, do you love me or your child? DMO Xian pinched her face as his brows were sincere. His deep eyes were filled with deep affection. I love you, so I love you and my child. Because it was her, so he loved her. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly soared as her eyes curved into a smile. Ah, the curtains of the war finally came to an end. The dark clouds dispersed, and the sunlight which symbolized hope shone on every corner of the various realms. The people from various realms started to rebuild their homes for the future. Because the Earth realm was used as the god-trapping array, Yi Qing Luo directly let the people from the Earth realm settle down in the god realm. As for how to maintain the balance between the Earth realm and the god realm, that could only be reformulated later. And just as Yi Qing Luo was wearing a phoenix robe and a phoenix crown, standing on the phoenix stage, which symbolized the supremacy of the divine phoenix realm, convening the various realms to make decisions for the future development of the biggest meeting. DMO Xian was dressed in a gorgeous red robe as he descended from the sky. The gorgeous red complemented his peerlessly handsome face, adding a different kind of charm to it. Yi Qing Luo was almost stunned. DMO Xian's eyes were filled with affection as he swept his sleeves. Flower petals fell from the sky as the entire venue was filled with boundless, rippling roses. Under the sea of flowers, DMO Xian lightly clasped Yi Qing Luo's lower jaw as he bowed his head. His voice was low, and in the sea of flowers, it carried a mellow intoxication. It's been so long, I'm already wearing my wedding dress. So, when do you intend to marry me? The man's elegant face was even more dazzling than the sea of flowers. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a thin mist as she smiled lightly. Now, let's get married. End of main text dash asterisk 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 asterisk. The author has something to say. This is the first time Momo has written such a long article and dragged on for such a long time. Now that I've sent it to you, it can be considered as fulfilling everyone's dream. To tell the truth, when she typed the words end of main text, she had a lot of emotions in her heart and a lot of reluctance. But after waiting for such a long time, she still had to write out the ending. Following that, there were some side chapters, mainly about DMO Xian and Yi Qing Luo's married life, as well as the children, and also some plot holes that weren't written in the ending, as well as some of the more popular daily CP. But the side chapters wouldn't be too long. She would write it when she was free, so her babies didn't have to keep waiting. Perhaps one day when they thought of it, they could come and take a look. Thank you for your company and waiting all this while. And I'm deeply sorry to let down your company and waiting. Really, thank you and sorry. It's you who gave me glory and the courage to stand up. Chapter 53:33. The main city of the God realm was brimming with joy today. From the end of the street to the end, it was hung with bright red silk and plastered with big red, happy characters. It added some liveliness to the usually cold and solemn God realm. Tables and tables of sumptuous banquets were set up within 100 miles of the temple. A golden-laid red carpet was also laid all the way to the temple. I didn't expect that I would be able to witness the wedding of the divine phoenix. I heard the man that our divine phoenix is going to marry is the palace lord of the imperial palace. Imperial palace? The overlord who traversed the realms. A perfect match, a perfect match. Countless people who came to congratulate them couldn't stop praising them. To Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian, they were already the saviors in everyone's hearts. No matter how high their profound grades were, no matter how powerful their status was, they were all convinced by this. In the auditorium, the festive drums were played. A pair of newlyweds slowly stepped onto the flower path paved with petals. The young lady was dressed in a robe with petals trailing behind her skirt. She looked like a fairy walking out of the flowers. Step by step, she walked to the front of the man. A slender hand was placed in the man's hand. The man clenched his fists and interlocked his fingers. The man was like a celestial being, peerless in his generation. The young lady was like a phoenix, charming and charming. After bowing to heaven and earth, to the parents, both of them bowed to each other. The red phoenix dress danced in the air. It made the young lady even more charming. The man lifted the veil and kissed her under the cheers of the crowd. Yi Qing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around Dmo Xian's neck as she buried her head in his arms. Her tone was soft and sincere, holding your hand, growing old with you, accompanying you for all eternity. This was the promise she gave him, a promise that only belonged to the two of them. Dmo Xian's brows curved slightly as his eyes were filled with tenderness. Among the many congratulatory voices, there was a corner that was extremely quiet. A purple figure stood in the corner, quietly watching the joyous scene. That pair of calm, cold eyes was suffused with a faint sadness. After watching for a long time, he suddenly laughed softly. Sure enough, I will never be able to surpass Dmo Xian's position in your heart. The man closed his eyes, and tears fell from the corners of his eyes again. Or rather, I've never entered your heart. Just like what Yi Qing Luo had said previously, her heart was very small and could only accommodate Dmo Xian alone. As for him, from the beginning to the end, he was just an insignificant passerby. The man took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I still can't give you my blessing. He turned. His purple sleeves fluttered in the wind, shimmering and luxurious. Wuxin, since you're here, why don't you come in? The girl's clear voice came from behind him. The man stopped in his tracks. He turned around and saw the young girl's enchanting face. Behind her was a man dressed in bridegroom attire. Zhu Wuxin's pupils shrank slightly. He averted his gaze and walked away. Wuxin. Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth once again, as her gaze calmly looked at his back view. Zhu Wuxin's footsteps halted once more. Wu Xian, that time when we were able to successfully seal Huangwuyo, it was all thanks to you. Yi Qing Luo slowly walked to his side. I know, it was you who helped me. Zhu Wuxin's thin lips pursed slightly. Yi Qing Luo continued. Actually, the reason why my mother stayed by Uncle Gu's side was because of you. It was you who helped my mother to leave behind an obsession, which allowed me to successfully seal Huangwuyo in the end. I only divine that only you can solve this matter. Zhu Wuxin finally opened his mouth, as his voice was cold. If one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the trembling in his tone. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. But it's because of you that we can have the peace and tranquility we have now. Zhu Wuxin didn't say another word. Wuxin, really. Thank you. Yi Qing Luo lifted the phoenix skirt of her wedding dress as she bowed slightly towards Zhu Wuxin. I represent the upper realm and the other realms. Thank you. Pausing, she straightened her body. And I'm very grateful to you too. Zhu Wuxin's brows sunk slightly. He lifted his feet once again as he walked forward. What he wanted was never her gratitude. What he wanted, she would never be able to give it to him. Zhu Wuxin left in a straightforward and resolute manner. Indistinctly, he heard a young lady's clear and melodious voice shouting behind him. Wuxin, you're my forever friend, and also the godfather of the child in my womb. His body stiffened slightly, but his footsteps were still very resolute. The festive drumming and congratulatory voices were still lingering in his mind. He walked away step by step, but in front of him, that gorgeous young lady dressed in red, whose beauty could cause the downfall of countries, was still clearly floating in front of his eyes. He stopped as he leaned against a big tree and shut his eyes. He covered his eyes with his hand, not knowing how long had passed. A soft little hand covered his hand. By his ear was an unfamiliar lady's tender voice. "Little brother, why are you sitting here alone? You'll fall sick." Zhu Wuxin suddenly opened his eyes. His icy cold eyes shot out like a sharp blade. The lady got a fright as the umbrella in her hand also dropped onto the ground. The wind lifted the veil on the lady's face. A devastatingly beautiful face reflected into Zhu Wuxin's eyes. The pair of narrow and wavy eyes was like a net trapping him firmly. This pair of eyes looked like Yi Qing Luo, seemed like her. Zhu Wuxin stretched out his hand absent-mindedly as he wanted to touch the lady in front of him, but his hand stretched out halfway as it fell down heavily. "Ha! Yi Qing Luo, I'm already unable to escape from your net. If meeting you is my calamity, then I'm willing to be consigned to eternal damnation." Book end.